News. Another attempt at evacuations in a besieged Ukrainian city.
Despite the scaling back of Russian forces in the north, it is a very, very different story in the eastern part of the country in Mariupol. Russian forces blocking humanitarian aid organizations from making any rescues in the last 2 days, where roughly 100,000 people remain trapped. Only 6,000 have made it out.
Fox's Alex Hogan. Pope Francis says he may visit the Ukrainian capital. While speaking in Malta, he blasted what he called infantile and destructive aggression. Russian leader Vladimir Putin has been labeled a war criminal by an attorney who oversaw war crimes investigations in Rwanda, Syria, and the former Yugoslavia. Carla Del Ponte, who was the chief prosecutor for the International Criminal Court, tells a Swiss newspaper she's been shocked to see mass graves and the destruction of entire towns. The situation at the southern border will be changing next month, making it more difficult to turn away asylum seekers.
Senator Joe Manchin said we are nowhere near prepared to deal with that influx. Senator Mark Kelly saying this is the wrong decision. And Senator Kyrsten Sinema says it shows a lack of understanding about the crisis at our border. Now, Title 42 is a COVID-related public health order started during the Trump administration that authorized the quick expulsion of migrants. The CDC announced yesterday that Title 42 will be lifted on May 23rd. And the White House says that gives them some time.
Fox's Alexandria Hoff. 1 in 13 people in the UK are believed to have been infected with COVID over the past week, and hospitalizations are going up. All virus restrictions were scrapped in late February in Britain. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. You're listening to Winning at Life Financial News Talk Radio. Yep, I'm your host, Gregory Ricks. You recognize the voice. You recognize the music. Yeah, we're going to talk money the next 3 hours. Good news for you. Great news. We have Dwayne Stein with us this first hour of the show. Hour 2 and hour 3, great news about that too. You have me for the show, and we're going to talk about some Social Security, some investing. We had a couple of events this week, and one of the neat things we do at events that I've done for years is collect concern sheets. And it's kind of like an ongoing survey of what's on people's, people that attend our events, what is on their minds. And we're going to cover those today, especially the one on Thursday up in Madisonville. I looked at the concerns and I was like, wow, these are great questions, great comments. So we're going to talk about that on the show today as well. And then, the magic of the show, that's the callers. They call in, they ask questions, and that gives us direction. And in essence, that's kind of a live survey that we do with live radio. You know what people are thinking, what they're asking. And this is a 3-hour show. You're joining us in the first hour, and we do this for you every Saturday. So that kind of neat thing that we do is let you call in and ask questions. And this first hour is kind of going to be mortgage-centric because we have Dwayne Stein, which is also host of Mortgage Gumbo. And I say, Dwayne, his playing field is all things mortgages, interest rate, credit scores, and take on the market, because buying your home outside of, say, your 401k might be one of your largest investments that you ever make. So interest rates are a part of that, an understanding of mortgages, and framing all that the right way is really important. And we don't look at mortgages or house money or refinancing or pulling money out to do investments. I am not a fan of that. Sometimes we'll have people ask, well, this happened where somebody recently brought up that I borrowed money. I'd like to talk to you guys about investing it. Where'd the money come? It came out of my house. Well, then that's a deal breaker for us. And that, so just want to have clarity on that. And Dwayne will probably have some thoughts as well. The phone number to join the conversation is 504-260-0995. You can also reach out to us through the Winning at Life app. If you don't have it, add it to your smartphone. Kind of like now's a good time to do it. No cost to you. And you can text, email, call the show through the app. You can stream it audio or connect to YouTube or Facebook Live where we're streaming. Hey, everybody out there that's watching the show, it's still something. 12 years ago, we started doing this conceptually. June will be actual 12 years of on the air with Winning at Life. And, it's just, we just didn't have all these technologies. Just, gosh, so much has changed in the past 10 years. So, and if you want to check more about myself, which I'm a wealth advisor by day, CEO, founder of Gregory Ricks and Associates. If you want to know more about me, go to GregoryRicks.com. We have a great team of advisors and customer support. So you can check us out on in the media page at GregoryRicks.com. If you're wanting to email or connect to us in any way, whether it's for the show, email, or needing some help or questions to the firm, info at GregoryRicks.com. So without further ado, do we have Dwayne Stein on? Hey, Dwayne.
Good morning. How are you doing, sir?
Welcome to Winning at Life and to the Winning at Life studio. So how are things going these days?
It's a little crazy out there right now, Gregory, but it is what it is. We're prepared for this. I've seen these sort of choppy waters. When you do this for almost 30 years, you see ups and downs. And, I've kind of created the motto of rates up, so what, right? Like, so what are we going to do now? And this is why, more importantly now than ever, you got to have somebody that can kind of help you through these charted waters, right? Because if you're just looking at a number on a piece of paper, it depends on what you're comparing it to, right? Are you comparing it to the last 2 years, or are you comparing it to the history of interest rates? Because if you line it up to what just the last back, let's go before the pandemic, which, in the history of things, when you look back, 20 and 21's people 100 years from now are going to go, man, what the heck happened back then? Well, the world almost came to an end, right? So, when you take that out, these 2 years over the history, and you look, we're not that far off to where we were, Gregory, back in 2019 when it comes to rates. So, it's getting people to understand that and realize, and that's where your show and my show and just providing that education is just so important right now.
Well, since you spoke of interest rates in 2019,
yep,
where are we today? Let's start with the 30-year fixed mortgage.
Yep, 30-year today is at 4.88 on a 30-year. 15's at 4.22. FHA 4.4, jumbo 4.18, and a 5/1 arms 3.94. So, yeah, if you compare that to what if you've been listening for the last couple of years to what we've been talking about, you go, holy moly, right? Yeah, rates are up. But then if you go back to 2019 and you go, hey, the 30-year back then was 4.21, we're 60 basis points off. The 15's less than 30 basis. FHA's less than 30 basis points. Jumbo's actually was lower, right? So, I mean, we're right in that ballpark, Gregory, where, there's been times on the show over the last 7.5 years where I came in and went, rates went up 50 basis points this week. So we're not that far off to where if you just erase that pandemic part, we're kind of right back where we were going into this thing.
Okay, so you went over a lot of numbers fast there. Hit me again with that 30-year fixed.
4.88 today is a 30-year fixed rate.
Okay. So let's frame this, because I'll tell you, we've got, there's a group of people. I guess I would define them maybe as Z generation. I believe that's our youngest group moving up into the workforce. Yep. They've never seen or understand higher interest rates. So when they kind of see this world that we're in, they're like, oh my gosh, interest rates are really high at this time. And, I was overheard a conversation recently, and, well, I didn't overhear it. It was kind of told to me secondhand, but it was a young man looking to, he's in the market looking at houses, and was talking about, gosh, interest rates are above 4%. He said, it may be 3 years before I can buy a house. And I'm like, this is not high interest rates. You want to talk about high interest rates? Well, let's go over that. And I don't know if that's a way to look at it, that, oh my gosh, this is high. I'm going to probably have to wait 3 years. So you know what he's saying? The assumption is, oh, they're going to go back down and we can get 3% mortgages again. And I don't know if we are going to get there. You might be 2 or 3 percentage points higher possibly. Now, the neat thing, and because I want your thought on this, is, one thing about mortgages is you can go ahead, get this rate, and if they get lower in the future, this is a one-sided deal. The bank can't charge you higher rates if they're higher, but if they are lower, you can opt out and do a new mortgage. So
absolutely correct.
So your thoughts on, say, looking 3 years out?
So a few things. So 3 years out, let's go. All right, well, houses will have settled by then, right? Maybe they'll even it'll become a little bit more of a buyer's market. Good. Well, then your rate's going to be 0.5%, 2% higher. So my question to everybody listening, and this is exactly how I try to get it across. Are you scared that rates are going up, or do you know what your payment is? Because you know how many people, Gregory, are seeing rates are up and they don't even know what they can afford? That's my frustration. They just see rates are up, yet they have no idea what they can afford anyway. So we've got to get out of that, not the drunken uncle, but it's all over the TV. Rates up, oh my gosh, this, that, and the other. But yeah, rates are up, so what? Are you afraid of the number on a piece of paper, or what your payment is? Because so many people aren't even giving themselves a chance to find out what they can truly afford, because they see a number on a piece of paper and they're not finding out, Gregory, like you kind of alluded to, hey, what are your options? Maybe, putting down 20% versus buying out mortgage insurance so you can get a little bit more house. There's so many different options out there that people just aren't aware of. So, and waiting 3 years, ask the folks that sat on the sideline who are calling me to refinance right now. Most of them are like, my gosh, 5.25% for a refinance. Well, last year they were this. Well, you didn't call me last year, right? So this is what we have to work with now.
I think that's really great framing, where they're kind of just looking at interest rates and seeing the expense of that. How much does that on an average home? And we've got I tell you what, we're going to talk about when we come back from the break. I was going to try to squeeze you in 30 minutes, but why? Dwayne can't give me an answer in 15 seconds, because this isn't that simple. So we're going to talk about the impact of interest rates, say, on an average mortgage. I know he can give us a lot of information on that. I want to talk about credit as well while we have Dwayne on this morning as well, because that's maybe a bigger impact than interest rates. You're listening to Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks. We'll be back in a few minutes. Do you like golf? Would you like to help cure cancer? Well, put a reminder in your phone for the 15th annual Mark Mitchell Cancer Crusaders Golf Tournament. It's coming up at Bayou Oaks at City Park South Course, noon on Monday, April 25th. All the proceeds go to LSU Stanley S. Scott Cancer Center and Tulane Cancer Center for Cancer Research. Go to cclagolf.com, cclagolf.com.
Wow. How great would it be to get a rate quote on a home loan without giving some dude or dudette your whole life story, wasting hours finding loan documents just to get a hard sell on why you need to use them? At Snap, Send, and Save Dadcam, there's absolutely no credit pull or no cost to you. I'll give you your options on rates, terms, and costs. So visit Snap, Send, and Save Dadcam. Follow the instructions, and you can thank me later when we chat.
If you like money, you'll love the Winning at Life app. On the Winning at Life app, you can hear the Ask Gregory podcast, where you'll find episodes based on a financial topic. So if you're looking for help on a specific situation, there's a good chance you'll find it on the Ask Gregory podcast, including episodes on 401ks, taxes, stocks, Social Security, gold, and whether or not you should buy an RV. Hear the Ask Gregory podcast on the Winning at Life app, your wallet's favorite app.
Half of estate planning is having a plan put together for your loved ones when you pass away. The other half of estate planning is dealing with someone else's plan when they pass away. Sometimes they have a great plan, but sometimes you need a little help. Don't leave your loved ones in a bind. Call me, and we'll make sure you have a plan. Hi, I'm Wes Blanchard, an estate planning attorney in Metairie. What's your plan? Find me at wjblanchardraw.com.
The Ricks Report with Gregory Ricks.
At the core, I always tell people, I'm not here to make you rich. I'm here to make sure you don't run out of money, that you don't run out of income. That's how I look at my job. Over time, saving, making good decisions can make you rich. But what you have is, what is your core thing? Your core thing should be making money. And your core thing, you should set aside money to work elsewhere. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to put it to risk. You could put it to safety. But your core thing makes you money, or you tell me your core thing is the market, day trading, or gambling in the market. It shouldn't be. You should have a core thing that makes you money, and you peel some off for the future when you're done with your core.
Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks. Find us on the Winning at Life app or winningatlife.com. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Stars need to be wished on. Your skin needs to be kissed on. My eyes, baby, they're fixed on you.
Hey, y'all. You're listening to Winning at Life. Live financial news talk radio. So yeah, this is the Saturday morning money show, 3 hours of financial talk. If you want to join the conversation, magic of the show is the listeners joining in. 504-260-0995. You can reach out to us through the Winning at Life app, text, email, call the show through the app. The email's info@gregoryricks.com, and we're over on Facebook Live and YouTube streaming, so you could watch the show. Put it on that 82-inch TV or 100-inch, whatever those giant screens are, or 75. I recently, I think I upgraded my 65 in the family room to a 75-inch, and that's, it's pretty cool, and the color is so much more vivid. But once again, now it has some quirks because they almost do too much. I actually have to turn it on twice when I turn it on. I'm like, I don't understand that. It'll turn on, show me what's going on, and then it turns off. And then I turn it on again, and it stays on. So quirkiness of that. So I don't know why. But, hey, the picture's really great. We have Dwayne Stein with us in studio this week on Winning at Life. Dwayne?
Yes,
Once
sir.
again, when we went to break, I wanted to ask you about, and wanted to hold off on the answer to now, is, when people are looking at buying property, and here's one of the things also that's impacting them, because, And it's not in every housing market, but housing prices have gone up a good bit this past year. And there's, COVID had to do something with that. Limited supply on the market, limited supply of houses on the market probably had the most important impact of that. And I think new construction has gone up, 2x4s, dramatically more expensive than 2 years ago. That has probably kind of filtered over now to cause housing to go up, and especially on new houses, which probably is kind of like the car thing. You can't get a new car, so there's more demand on used cars, so it forces used car prices to move up a lot because that's where the supply is for the demand. And on housing, they're behind on new housing starts. We're millions of houses behind, so that puts more demand on existing houses that are in place. And the average U.S. single-family home has appreciated at least 10% in just 4 of the last 30 years. And that was 2004, 2005, 2020, and 2021. So from what history tells us, it's not going to continue. It's going to cool off some. But once again, when you look at that, that's a pretty darn good investment if you make a good decision on, location, quality of the house, and so forth. You're probably putting money in something that is going to appreciate over time. But one of the things is I still think, we may not, history tells us it doesn't go up 10% every year, but we've had that the past couple years, and that's just because of COVID and supply and demand is really the impact. It's not going to stay at that rate. But once again, I feel interest rates are going to move up some more because the Fed has basically signaled that. And I think demand on housing is going to be a while before it catches up. So if you're waiting, for example, say, well, I'm going to wait 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, I think in both areas, cost and interest rate is going to cost you more. So what's the impact of interest rate moving up, say, on the average home price?
So a couple things just to kind of piggyback on when you're talking about housing, right, and housing shortage. So, when it comes to existing homes, Gregory, a lot of people are asking them, what do you hear? You hear, well, why pay more? I could make more, but then I got to go pay more, right? So, a lot of, I'm starting to see a lot of folks wrap back around and come to me and go, hey, you know what? Why move out if it costs more to move up? So they're realizing, hey, I like my neighbor, so I'm going to get some cash, pay off these debts that I accumulated, a lot of this credit card debt over the pandemic and all that, and they're getting cash to take care of that. The other thing that COVID has affected in the housing market is this. People want bigger houses. So there's no more new construction of 1,200 square foot houses. They're done. So that starter home now goes for $300,000. Wow. So that's where, you're seeing a lot of impact, right? So when people go, well, I don't know. Well, you're going to have less existing homes for sale. It's proof 4 months in a row now, that number, it's down. 4 months in a row, existing home sales are down, right? Because either people's had enough or the rates started to creep up a little bit to the point where they said it's just not worth it to me. Take on foreclosures, right? And we've talked about this several times. While foreclosures, and I'm quoting here, are up, it's nowhere where it used to be. Are we going to see them to continue to go up, foreclosures? Yes, because the folks who had to be in forbearance for 2 straight years, they truly needed it, and it's unfortunate. But here's the thing. You know what those foreclosures, what those folks have? They have equity. So they're going to be able to sell back to a bank or to somebody or to an investor who's going to come in and buy that and turn around and rent that house versus, Gregory, back in the day when the house got foreclosed, it meant somebody couldn't pay for it. They were upside down. They boarded it up. It went to auction and then so on and so forth. We're not seeing that now because you're not going to have that. So, and then you talk about interest rates going up a little bit. So People want to live further out. They want more space because, look, one thing the pandemic did change, a lot of people now are working from home, so they need that extra room to call an office. And then when you add interest rates into a higher loan amount, well, then naturally, sure, payments will go up. But find out if you can still afford that house. So a lot of times people will go to me, well, hey, I'm going to put down an extra $10,000. Well, $10,000 more down on average is a difference of about $50 on your mortgage payment, right? So if let me break it down even better. For every $5, you get $5 off for every $1,000 you take off of your mortgage. So that takes you almost 16 years to make that money up. Let's face it, the first house we buy is probably not your forever home. So that's where, like you're talking about, what is the difference with the rates and how we educate folks? That's what we got to look at. We've got to look at, is throwing more money at it make sense to you? To me, and I know you, Gregory, you're going to know how to use your $50 a lot better than putting it in a mortgage that you can't touch anymore. So if it's not an affordability issue, which if $50 is an affordability issue, we're talking about a whole new, we're in a whole new category as far as affordability goes. So that's what you have to make sure that you're looking at.
The mortgage amount, ultimately gets you to your payment and down payment. So you're kind of looking at, go back to the square footage. So the 1,200 square foot home is gone. So what are they now on average for starter homes? 1,800, 2,000?
You're looking at 1,700 plus 1,800. Yes, sir. Because that dirt is now more expensive than ever, right? So, and you got to understand that you just mentioned 2x4s, wood, everything, brick, you name it, is more expensive. So when that builder gets that brick and that wood, they got to try to make some sort of a profit. So you're seeing you're seeing bigger homes because plus people want that. There's no more 2-in-1s.
So let me simplify the other part. And we talked about this, I believe, last month when you were on the show, and it was kind of Warren Buffett's take on paying cash or down payment for a home. And you need to get the payment to where you can afford it, but throwing a lot of cash at it doesn't impact it very much. So you need to judge where your affordability is in buying into it and not necessarily tie up excess cash, or you do it in a way where, okay, I can't afford that, so let me throw a lot of money at it, but then you dry up your capital. That could impact you as well. But because, there's kind of three things. I'm looking here at a Motley Fool article, and there was kind of three things it says, three pieces of terrible advice. And one of them is thinking you've saved, for example, $10,000 in emergency savings, that you're good and solid there. And that shouldn't necessarily be something you don't worry about, because you need to manage that. And sometimes you could get by with less. Sometimes you're probably needing more. And the other is avoiding credit cards at all costs. And I want to circle back around before you leave us this hour. But the other is buy a home in cash if you can. And I don't know that that's such a good idea, because, I have discussions with business owners in my industry, and this comes up where they buy office buildings and such. And I'm just like, are you buying the buildings that your offices are in? And I'm like, no, I don't want to tie up capital in that way. I'd rather provide capital for growing the business, not being tied up in real estate. So it's kind of a different take. And your feedback I'll get when we come back from the break on that, because I know you have some thoughts on from a business standpoint and also housing standpoint. People don't need to buy in a way that could cause them to lose the property in the future. And I think that's a good way to frame it. You're listening to Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks. We'll be right back after this break and give you more helpful tips.
You all are so good. I've listened to you for years.
Ask Gregory is a financial podcast from the guys who bring you Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks.
I am near retirement, and I wish I would have been listening to y'all for the last couple of years.
Learn the ins, outs, do's, don'ts, rules, and tools of the financial world.
I have a broker. He has no idea what you and I just talked about.
From your 401k to your IRA to your pension to your Social Security to your Medicare.
Hi, Greg. Appreciate your service to the community.
From your ETFs to your precious metals.
The program helps to ground me. There's some personal, real life there.
Find the Ask Gregory podcast on the Winning at Life app, the iHeartRadio app, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and wherever else you can find podcasts probably.
That's exactly what I needed to know. Hey, I love your show.
Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC. The firm is not affiliated with the U.S. government or any governmental agency.
Hi, I'm Gregory Ricks. Today we see rising costs at the grocery store and the gas pump. Have you prepared for rising inflation and higher taxes in your financial plan? Get our guide, Inflation and Your Retirement. Go to GregoryRicks.com/inflation to get our guide today. We are Gregory Ricks and Associates, the Total Wealth Authority.
Our firm provides insurance services, investment, and advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management, LLC. AE Wealth Management, LLC, and Gregory Ricks and Associates are not affiliated companies.
If you like money, you'll love the Winning at Life app. On the Winning at Life app, you can listen to the show live 6 days a week. And if we're not on at the moment, you can hear a replay of the latest episode of Winning at Life. Whether you're getting a late start on your retirement savings or keeping up with the financial news, Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks is there on demand. Hear the Winning at Life show on the Winning at Life app, your wallet's favorite app.
We are living in historic times, extraordinary times. A lot of people need help right now, and I want you to remember your local food bank. Now, here in New Orleans, it's Second Harvest Food Bank. Over in Mobile, they've got Feeding the Goal. But you can find your local food bank, feedingamerica.org. Food donations, monetary donations, or I know you've got some free time. Find your local food bank. Support your local food bank, especially in times like this. Do some good. feedingamerica.org.
Fox News, I'm Karen McHugh. Russia is shifting its forces after 5 weeks of making war on Ukraine.
Russian forces right now are really solidifying their forces around the eastern city of Mariupol. Just only 6,000 of the roughly 100,000 people have been able to be evacuated in the last day. Looking closer to the northern part of the country, near the capital of Kyiv and nearby Chernihiv, Ukraine has noticed the Russian forces are slowly starting to retreat days after Russian negotiators said that they would.
Fox's Alex Hogan. While grateful for granting Ukraine nearly $15 billion in weapons and humanitarian aid since the war began, this GOP lawmaker wishes President Biden had acted sooner.
It's a little late. He should have done it before, as Republicans had urged him to do.
Arizona Congresswoman Debbie Lesko on Fox. America is listening to Fox News.
Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks is a copyright of Down South Strategies for the private use of our audience. Any unauthorized use of this broadcast without express consent is prohibited. For podcasts, show information, and contacts to our sponsors, go to winningatlife.com or download the Winning at Life app. If you have a financial situation and you're not quite sure what to do, you better call Gregory. We are Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks.
I know everybody says money can't buy happiness, but it can buy me a...
You're listening to Winning at Life, live financial news talk radio. And maybe we can give you some information here, help you get that boat and a truck to pull it. I don't know. It sounds like a lot of work to me, but somebody's got to fish, huh? Got to fish.
Yeah.
Got to water.
Hey, Greg, that was my...
That
was my goal in college. In marketing class, they said, what do you want? I said, I want to make $30,000 a year so I could have a boat, but I need a truck to pull it. So when I hear that song, I'm like, man, they must have been part of my marketing class. That was my goals back in 1993.
Well, that was good. So did you ever get that boat and truck?
I got the boat and the truck. Yes, sir.
Oh,
yep, sure did.
Congrats on that. That is Dwayne Stein. He's host of Mortgage Gumbo. He's with us through this segment here. He's got to run. I think your son's playing some ball and you got to be at a game.
Yes, sir. Yeah, responsibilities, man. Nobody told me about that when I was trying to buy a boat and a truck to pull it with, man. You know what I'm saying? So these obligations, awesome. Man, they're crazy.
Okay, so when we went to break, I was kind of talking about a few things regarding buying a home with cash. And, you know, there's different scenarios, but you got to look at, are you tying that money up from that, or can you leverage and do something? And I used a little phrase there, and I like that. Don't buy your home and do it in a way that jeopardizes you in the future from being able to keep that home. And you mentioned something in the last segment, and that's where people that are behind and that forbearance and the thing is, most people don't keep enough emergency savings, so they're probably not going to be able to catch that back up, yet they have equity, which also means they might not be able to refinance to fix this problem, or maybe they could in some cases, but deal with the problem and don't lose that home and lose that equity that's in the home. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you hit it perfectly, Greg. And the word I use when I talk to my clients is about cash is too much cash equals being house poor. And what house poor means is you live on a nice street, you live next to the Joneses, right? But you're eating ramen noodles while they're out back grilling steaks, right? So you can't do, when you throw too much cash into a home, the only way you get it back, Gregory, and you know, and listeners, is you got to go use your money to refinance it to get it back, right? So my goal is always to see what can we get you to from a affordability standpoint to where you're comfortable, it makes sense for you, and you hold on to your funds, because you've had a great saying that I've heard you say, and I now use it as well, and it's life happens. We don't know what the future is. But, you know, sometimes these folks, when they come to me, because maybe they did that 15-year term or they put a big down payment, and guess what, Gregory? Now they got to come back to refinance because they need a new roof or their AC went out, right? So what could have been differently? And that's where I mentioned early in the first segment, Greg, for every $1,000 that you put down is only $5 on your mortgage payment. So think about it that way. So if you take that $1,000, how many months at $5 does it take you to get your money back? It's 16 years and 6 months. That's not a good investment, folks, in a house that you may be in 10 years tops. So that's what I think Gregory and I are trying to let you know when it comes to this cash. Be careful. Don't make yourself house poor. We're not telling you don't go get the house. And that's where you've got to have a fiduciary like me and a mortgage advisor who is going to give you options. At the end of the day, you do what you want to do, but you got to have somebody that presents it versus go, oh, yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, use up all your savings. You know, I get some of these 28-year-olds that go, I've got 30 grand, I want to use it all so I could get a little bit of a bigger house. Well, now if something happens, they're done, because when you live in an apartment, you make a phone call and go, Landlord Gregory, I need you to come fix my AC or my tub's leaking. That doesn't happen when you're a homeowner.
Yeah, and things will break in the home, and if you're buying an existing house, one of the most expensive things in that is a mechanical system called your AC and heat. And at some point, and I don't know that people investigate that enough, but it's going to need work at some point in time, and you kind of got to pay to get it fixed because you don't want to be hot for long or cold for long.
That's right.
And when people ask, you know, I built a house some 6, 7, 8 years ago, and, you know, they were kind of, well, how's the new home going? I said, well, it's a used home now.
Yeah,
because
that's right.
It's not a new house that's problem-free after a period of time, you know. I've had to spend some money on it to fix some things, and actually having a new home, and I ended up spending money on the AC system because it wasn't built right in the home, as it turns out. So that cost me thousands more later, and that's what it is. So we have to have some margin for that, and emergency money, you have to think about it being, so many months of expenses. You could also, now if you've got cushion, you could replace, I'm saving up so many months of income, but typically your expenses are less than your income. So you have to look at that, and then you have to look at replenishing. Say you have to spend $5,000 on the AC. Now, when we're at retirement, that's a different view, but conceptually, you have to look at what are you impacting on cash flow, emergency savings, you lose that job, and you put everything into the house. It didn't, and what you're saying, it doesn't impact the payment very much. So you have to be careful with that, is what I come to.
And at the end of the day, Gregory, that number, that rate is a number on a piece of paper. And I'm not naive enough. Listen, I've been doing this for 30 years to go. I'm smart enough to know with my Chalmette education that 4.88 is higher than, 4.80. And it's higher than 3.95 where it was a couple months back. But what's even more important than that is you don't have to throw more money at it. What you can do is, and I know you're a huge fan of this, is where we show folks is, hey, look, let's attack it through biweekly payments. The key is to a house is not to pay more than you have to for it. So how do you do that? Hey, you try to pay less interest, right? You let the home work for you. Let it keep going in value. Look, this 10% that it's been four times since, but it's been ironically two of the last 2 years. Chances are we're going to probably approach that number in 2022 as things start to level out. But why is it bad when it's a 4% return on a home? So my thing is, let's win. While your equity's going up, let's win that investment by maybe doing bi-weekly if you want to attack this house and you want to get that home paid off more. Let's look at that back-end number and how we could beat that versus that number on a piece of paper that they call an interest rate.
Another thought here, and I know you're going to have to leave us at the break. So anybody?
No, I told they'll start. I'm good. If you need me here, Gregory, I could stay.
Okay. Well, if you don't mind, I'm going to keep you on a few more minutes after the break.
Yeah.
Let's take a moment here and go to Steve in Madison, Alabama. I've had him on hold for a few minutes, and I think he's got a question regarding IRAs. Hey, Steve, welcome to Winning at Life from Madison, Alabama. Welcome to the show. How can we help you today?
Hi, Gregory. How are you?
Hey, I'm good.
Hey, yeah. So my question is, I actually tuned into your show. You talked about baseball, and when I was there last summer driving through to Baton Rouge for a big tournament for my son, and I picked up on the local radio station. So now I'm on the app, and so I listen to you quite a bit. So
awesome.
Question I have is, of course, I'm married, and I'm 59. So I have a Roth IRA, it's a backdoor Roth, right? For me and my wife, we max those out annually. We can still do those, so that's great. I also have a Roth 401k, and I max that out for myself at work. And then the company has a traditional, their portion, of course, is company match, which is really great. It's like 10%, so can't hardly turn that money down. But also, so I'm going to be 59 and a half in August. So I have an IUL, an Index Universal Life, that I started a couple of years ago that I'm unfunded. And I'm looking to, when I turn 59 and a half in August, my thought is to make an in-service distribution to my traditional IRA and then do a conversion of a portion of that, pay the taxes, and then put that from the traditional and fund the IUL portion that I'm building, getting that taxable money or tax-deferred money that's the traditional company portion and doing that. So that's what I'm looking to do, and I'm trying to make sure don't miss SIP. I said, do I need a separate traditional IRA? Can I use the one I use for
Steve? I'm going to
It's been
answer that
established-
question when we come back from the break. You're listening to Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks.
If you've got a financial situation and you're not quite sure what to do, you better call Gregory.
People with a lot of money fall into schemes and such. And that's whether somebody calling you on your phone or sending you an email, hey, you won the lottery, send me $3,500 so we can process it. That's what you've got to be careful for on these get rich ideas. There's no magic bullet out there. If you can do time travel, then okay, there's probably some opportunity to jump back and grab Apple at $2 a share or start helping Bezos in his garage. And one of the things is have somebody you trust to bounce these ideas off of. And when they tell you it's a bad idea, you should take them at their word for it.
Gregory Ricks and Associates, 504-832-9200 or GregoryRicks.com. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC.
When I was growing up, my mom relied on old wives' tales to get rid of outdoor bugs. One method included putting 2 pennies in a bag of water and hanging them throughout the backyard. And let's not forget Mom's go-to, the citronella candle, which never worked. It's the 20s. We have science and much more thorough ways to get rid of bugs. Call Mosquito Joe. Mosquito Joe has this time-release capsule that they spray that slowly releases their mosquito death over a course of a month. Because mosquitoes suck. NewOrleans.mosquitojoe.com.
Ask Gregory is a financial podcast from the guys who bring you Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks.
I'm your host, Gregory Ricks, a financial advisor here to answer your questions and help you win with your money.
Find the Ask Gregory podcast on the Winning at Life app, the iHeartRadio app, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify.
That's exactly what I needed to know. Simple information from good people.
Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC. The Ricks Report with Gregory Ricks.
My age that I can claim Social Security is 66. If I wait to 67, I'll get an additional 8%. But you have to wait the full year. Do they prorate it like if you do it at 66 and a half, then you get 4%?
You get a credit for each month you defer. And here's a little technicality. Delayed retirement credits don't get calculated and applied till the beginning of the next calendar year. So if you're deferring and getting delayed retirement credits and then you turn it on middle of another year, those delayed credits will be factored in the beginning of next year and made up for what you didn't have and paid at that higher rate at the next calendar year.
Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks. Find us on the Winning at Life app or winningatlife.com. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC.
Welcome back. You're listening to Winning at Life, live financial news talk radio. If you have a question, financial situation, want to get some guidance, give us a call here, 504-260-0995. And this isn't the only place you can get that help. You know, in my day job, I'm CEO, founder, and wealth advisor at Gregory Ricks and Associates. I have a great team to help you. So if you're wanting to reach out, ask some questions, start a conversation, we got your back. Give the office a call. And I'm going to send you to GregoryRicks.com to start that. You can email us through the website, which is info@GregoryRicks.com, by the way, or call the office number. On the show here, Dwayne Stein did have to bolt, and I gave him the okay to leave. We had more to talk about, of course, but good news, he's going to be back next Saturday also on the first hour, and we will circle back on some of the things we were discussing as well and add more things to talk to him about. But the great news is Dwayne will be back on the show next week, so tune in for that as well. We have Steve calling in from Madison, Alabama, and he's got some questions regarding his traditional 401k. He's got Roth IRA, Roth 401k, and doing an IUL. So, Steve, we have a few minutes here on this break because Dwayne's gone, and we can kind of focus on yours because I think we're going to take a few minutes here to talk about this. You back with us, Steve?
Yes, sir. I sure am.
Okay, so your 401k, you've got traditional money going in there as well as Roth?
Yeah, the company's matching is the traditional portion. My portion is Roth. And then the company, of course, matching has to, go through that tax requirement. So it's tax deferred is their portion. So I'm considering using some of that money, when I turn 59 and a half in August, or after that date, is taking access to some of that money, moving it in service distribution, which they allow, move that into traditional, and then converting some of that to fund the IUL, which is another plug of asset type of deal. And so versus just pulling cash out, I have emergency savings, referencing probably about 80 to 90K. So I'm not too worried about that, but I want to get that money kind of out of the taxable bucket and put it to work in that IUL, which I started a couple of years ago. So that's kind of what I'm trying to make sure I'm not, misstepping. I understand a couple of weeks ago, I think you talked about, using, an IRA if you have money in it. I only use that traditional I put money into it in, say, December, it's $14K, and then I do the backdoor Roth conversion, which we can still do, but, that may change here in the near future. It almost changed last year. I think they were trying to make the adjustment. So I'm trying to make sure that is still a viable path to help fund that, but also get some of the money out of the taxable, tax-deferred bucket, I guess you might say, and get it more free.
Yeah, I like your thinking there that if there's opportunity to get out of that taxable money now efficiently so that you've got more of tax-free assets generating tax-free income in the future should be the thinking on how you can do that. And at times we've got to put money pre-tax away, and we may not be able to unwind all or even a portion of that for some people, but we pretty much know the taxes are going to sunset. It is actual law. It's not theory. The way it stands right now, basically January 1 of 2026, the tax brackets are reverting back, and that's another topic I probably have later in the show is some other things that are going to be impacted by the sunset provisions, meaning it's reverting back. So one question I was thinking of there, do you have in your plan the ability to contribute excess contributions, after-tax contributions to your company plan?
Well, it's not set up where, I've asked that question of them, and we're limited by the way it was set up because it's, I can't remember the terminology, but I did ask that of our folks that manage the 401k, and I can only do the max. I think it's 27K, and then they match their 10%. I can't get to that higher number because the way it's established. So I did ask that question. So I can't get there further. But my main concern is, like I said, I know I'm moving into a traditional. If I put this money out of their traditional portion into convert it, in service and convert it, does that limit me down the road? Then I can take that money after 59 and a half. But does it limit me on other things I can do? If this backdoor Roth is still available, can I? Because I put money in there and I'm holding it, and I want to pull next year $7,000 out of there and convert it over. I mean, I know I'd have to pay the taxes on whatever that is, but does it limit me on continuing to do the backdoor and using that same traditional IRA that I'm using right now just to fund the backdoor Roth, which I've had established for a long time, limit me on that? And if I dual use it, for the IUL as a holding place, pay the taxes and move it into there, is there an issue I might run into?
Okay. We've got several things going on there. Now, the reason I want to share with the listeners why I asked about the after-tax or excess contributions to your 401k, because if you have in-service ability, you could take that excess contributions, which means you can get more into a company plan if it allows it. Then you could roll that over to a Roth, those excess contributions, and get more in the Roth plan than a general contribution. Right. Now, for the listeners, he's speaking of backdoor Roth, and it's a situation where because of your income level, you can't contribute to a Roth, but you can put money contributions to a traditional IRA and convert that over. But you can't have existing traditional IRA accounts that's in excess of that contribution, because the way the IRS funds looks at it, if you're doing a conversion, it has to be pro rata if you have additional assets. So what you have to think about with your Roth conversion, if you move money from your traditional 401k to a traditional IRA for purposes of converting, it could impact that contributions for the backdoor Roth, because you have to get all that money converted over. So it's something that you're needing to manage, and you might, instead of, one of the concepts could be, could you convert that contribution as it's moving over to a Roth so you're not having to deal with excess funds? You know, the other thing is, you know, the tax bite, I always kind of define it as, is you've got a tax bite, make sure you manage that, and, you know, look at a future tax prepare kind of, you know, what's the tax return going to look like next year if I do this? Because you really can't unwind it in simple terms. And so once you do a conversion, you're essentially committed to doing that as well.
Right, but you bump the top end of your taxable. I did talk to my tax man when they did it this year, and he said, you have this much space to do that if you do an in-service, and then you want to convert that much. You've got this much space before you definitely bump into a higher tax bracket is one point, but you could do that. And I knew that might be an issue with the backdoor Roth, and it might prevent me from doing that in the future. But if I can move $50K to that and do it in the IUL and lose that 7 and 7 capability, which they're trying to kind of vote out. You know, they tried to do that, I think, in the last Congress. So that may end up be going away, and it may not be an opportunity. It's still an opportunity, but that's what I was trying to do. Because but putting that money in that traditional, it will kind of maybe shut that door, but it would still allow me to move it in service and do a conversion of whatever that quantity is into the IUL.
One other thought, you brought up the IUL, so you're wanting to try to get more funding in that. So you're presently funding, but you want to get more funding into that, right?
Yeah, it's a sequential, and I don't mind telling you, it's basically, set amount the first 2 years, and then the quantity jumps, for the next 5 years. And I could put cash in there initially, and that's what I did the first 2 years. But now that I can access this money after 59 and a half, I'd like to take that larger chunk that I need to build in there, which is sequenced out based on the rules. I wanted to convert that money, pay the tax, which I can do that, and move it into there, and just kind of use that instead of converting it, moving it in service, and then converting it into a Roth portion. I would just take that money and move it into the IUL, which is another venue. I could put it in the Roth too, I would assume too, but I could do kind of a combination. But I want to get that IUL funded as sequential through the next. It's a 7-year plan to get it to
listeners.
full funding.
I'm going to verify here what I think you're doing with the IUL is you're looking at that is probably going to generate you tax-free income in the future. Is that the plan?
That's correct. Yes, sir. It's another avenue to add. Yes,
I love this. I'm glad you called in and we had this discussion, because what you're looking at is multiple sources of income and how can I create more income that's tax-free in the future. You're just juggling a little bit to get the funding where you need to be. And congrats to you on that plan, and anything we could help you with at Gregory Ricks and Associates, call my office and we'll give you a little bit of help. That office number is 504-832-9200. Go to GregoryRicks.com. Thank you for the call, Steve. We're going to jump to I think maybe a 2.5 minute break here. So we'll be back just in a few minutes and start hour 2 of Winning at Life.
From the Gregory Ricks and Associates Wealth Management Studios, WRNO FM, New Orleans, an iHeart radio station.
Russian forces shift focus. I'm Pam Puso, Fox News. More evidence of a retreat from some areas of Ukraine and a buildup in others.
Russian forces have been pulling their forces slightly back from the northern part of the country, specifically around the capital of Kyiv and nearby Chernihiv. Russian troops also withdrawing from Hostomel Airport in the north, as well as handing back control of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant.
Fox's Alex Hogan, Ukraine's leader, is warning civilians to be extremely careful. He says the Russians are leaving landmines around homes, equipment, and even around the bodies of the dead. Russian troops appear to be regrouping in the eastern part of the country where heavy fighting is nearly constant. Meantime, Ukraine keeps asking for more aid.
We should do more and we should do it faster. And unfortunately, that's not a unique circumstance with the federal government, but we got to do whatever we can because I agree with President Zelensky. If this goes the wrong way, this isn't the last we're going to hear of Putin.
House Republican Kelly Armstrong, last night the Pentagon announced an additional $300 million in military assistance, including armored vehicles and laser-guided rocket systems. More problems are being predicted at our southern border. In fact, the Border Patrol chief envisions mayhem when the public health order known as Title 42 is lifted next month. That will make the expulsion of migrants more difficult at a time when they're already surging the border.
In March alone, over 62,000 migrants evaded agents. And since October, there have been more than 300,000 known gotaways. To put that in perspective, in the entire 2021 fiscal year, there were 400,000.
Fox's Alexandria Hoff in Washington. America's listening to Fox News.
Welcome back. This is Winning at Life, live financial news talk radio. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm your host, Gregory Ricks. This is basically financial radio for the next 2 hours. If you're joining us now and first timers, I've been in the advising people with their money for a few decades now, and it's kind of a passion, helping people make better decisions with their money. I'm CEO, founder of Gregory Ricks and Associates, the Total Wealth Authority, wealth advisor as well, have a team of wealth advisors and other team members to provide support and services to the clients as well. I know some people look at what we do in our day job as investment management and such, and it's just a whole wide range of that. And I think a bigger part of it, I look at what we do from a money management standpoint. I kind of look at it as easy, where most people may really find that difficult. And our philosophy is trademarked, and it's the invest 50-50 philosophy. And there's a lot of basis to that. But I kind of look at that as easy stuff, where, once again, most find it difficult. But we do so much more than that. It's all encompassing. And so much about saving, investing, the planning, the income. It's wide-ranging discussions. It's almost like psychology of money. It's understanding and getting the viewpoints in line and aligning about how you think about money along with where you are trying to get to. In one phrase or way of kind of defining this is what we have to have or get to is where we have a confidence in reaching our destination, have confidence that we're going to have success. Invest and structure in a way that increases the probability of success. And that's what you've got to really feel good about it. And that's kind of maybe a summary of what we do in our day job. And that translates here to Winning at Life Radio, is to give you tips and ideas, and as well colleagues in the industry that listen and follow my show. And in my travels, I get comments from people around the country that say, yeah, I listened to your show. That's really great stuff. I wished I could do that and such. And I appreciate that, but that's kind of like we're spreading the seed out there. We have great seed for growing our corn, and we don't want to just control or monopolize that. We want this good decision making and even guidance and advice given to be improved across the country in all markets and in all conversations for people to do better with their money and to have confidence that they're going to reach that financial destination. So if you want to know more about my day job, what I do, and the great team of people that I have of advisors, support staff, and service team, you can go to GregoryRicks.com. And I'm going to give you a number to call into the show here, but I'm going to give you that office number as well. The email is info@GregoryRicks.com. And the office number is 504-832-9200. I have offices, physical offices in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. That would also be Mandeville, Louisiana, Metairie, Louisiana. That encompasses the New Orleans area, region there. And then Gulfport, Mississippi, which, encompasses probably people come in from Mobile and South Mississippi to visit us at the Gulfport office as well. But with technology, you're a phone call away from getting help. We do Zoom meetings and help people across the country with that. And it's simply as much as starting a conversation, and that could just be helping you solve an issue or leading to working with you and giving you guidance, advice, and help in accomplishing your financial goals. And that could be just getting money to work, getting a plan started, getting on the path to where you're trying to go towards retirement. And ultimately, I think we save two reasons. We save to where we can feel good about where we are financially. And in essence, it reduces the worries that you've got emergency savings. You're headed towards knowing I'm going to need money in the future because ultimately someday I can't work or you may not want to work. So that's, kind of at the core. Why are we saving and investing? now. I was talking to some of the team members yesterday, and I kind of stated the word plan. You got to have a plan. You got a plan to do this. I think that's overused. And you can, somebody could have made a plan. I can make a plan for you. But it's not like, okay, I'm done. I'm good for the next 30 years. I'm going to tell you, you are not. This is something where in the second meeting, when you are working with my team, we create basically a one-page plan that is easy to understand, which kind of gives you a direction. But you know what? There's one reason we like to have strategy meetings yearly at minimum is why things change, whether it's the return, your income, your goals. I could just keep going and going. And, taxes. Are taxes going to change? That is something that has to be talked about quite a bit. So what you need to work with is somebody that puts your interests first, that you are the priority in the conversation, and then you have to have confidence in a process that's going forward there. And in essence, that's what you have to have trust in and confidence in, that this process is going to help you reach your financial destination, give you a higher probability of success in that. And that's just, that conversation yesterday, I was like, plan here, plan there, plan that. And it's that is very simplified. And I'd say that's part of the process that we have, the guided planning system process that we have trademarked. But it's a part of it. It's not the whole deal. Because when you kind of look at all the areas that we kind of talk about, and it's which areas are you needing help in, and I'll just kind of start running through here. I'm going to make notes as I share this with you so that you understand that. But, one part of the process is income planning. And I'll ask you, is there retirement without income? I say there is not. Some way you're receiving income which enables that. So that's one area. And follow right behind that, investment planning, investment management, investment help. Number 3, I'll just popping in my mind, estate planning. There needs to be a plan. One of you is going to, if you're a couple, one of you is probably going to move on before the other. How does that look? And when you're both done with your assets, how does that look? Healthcare. That's going to be probably one of your largest expenses, say in retirement. But it's something even in your working life, if you don't have a handle on that conceptually, we're not in the health insurance business, but we have these discussions to make sure it aligns with everything that you're doing. Because if you don't, you could literally bankrupt yourself if you have exposure there that's not adequate. Taxes, creating tax efficiency and knowing. There's a stat. Let me see if I've got the stat here for you. Planning ahead. Well, I'm going to get back to you on the next break. I'll have to note this here because I really don't want to look for it. I've got a list of numbers for you, and it's just crazy where the national debt is headed. So you've got a plan for that. So tax efficiency, I think some of that philanthropy when you have money and want to help. The next is risk. How do you invest without having an understanding of risk and how that impacts you? And that might cause you to interrupt the compounding. And also, what do you do with cash, emergency savings, or money that you don't want to have exposed to risk. So I just went kind of covered about 8 areas right there, and I could probably list a couple more that's kind of part of that process. We're going to talk more about some of these areas when I come back from the break. And if you'd like to join the conversation, it's 504-260-0995. You're listening to Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks. Do you like golf? Would you like to help cure cancer? Well, put a reminder in your phone for the 15th annual Mark Mitchell Cancer Crusaders Golf Tournament. It's coming up at Bayou Oaks at City Park South Course, noon on Monday, April 25th. All the proceeds go to LSU Stanley S. Scott Cancer Center and Tulane Cancer Center for Cancer Research. Go to cclagolf.com, cclagolf.com.
Hey you. Yes, you driving. Keep those eyes on the road. This is Dwayne Stein. And are you or someone you know tired of those nosy and noisy neighbors? Ditch the rent. Visit SnapSendAndSave.com. In less than 5 minutes, you can start your journey to home ownership. It's never been easier. Visit SnapSendAndSave.com. It's that easy.
If you like money, you'll love the Winning at Life app. On the Winning at Life app, you can hear the Ask Gregory podcast, where you'll find episodes based on a financial topic. So if you're looking for help on a specific situation, there's a good chance you'll find it on the Ask Gregory podcast, including episodes on 401ks, taxes, stocks, Social Security, gold, and whether or not you should buy an RV. Hear the Ask Gregory podcast on the Winning at Life app, your wallet's favorite app.
2 questions. Do you have a pulse? Do you own anything? If you said yes to both, you probably need a will. You may even need a trust. We all know a lawyer. Do you know someone who specializes in estate planning? Do you really trust the husband of your sister's friend from college? Or would you feel better putting your family in the hands of the estate planning attorney of the Total Wealth Authority? I'm Wes Blanchard. What's your plan? Offices in Metairie and at wjblanchardlaw.com.
The Ricks Report with Gregory Ricks.
To determine if your Social Security will be subject to taxation, you have to be aware of the provisional income levels. The following forms of income figure into your provisional income calculation. And the way we get to that is 1/2 of your Social Security income, any distributions taken out of your tax-deferred accounts like IRAs, 401ks, any 1099 or interest generated from your taxable investments, any employment income, any rental income, and get this, interest from municipal bonds, those have to be figured in to determine if Social Security is going to be taxable.
Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks. Find us on the Winning at Life app or winningatlife.com. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC.
Yeah, that's my girl in the passenger seat. Windows down, dancing around, causing a scene. That's my girl, sipping Crown and Sprite in a ball cap, turn back. Ooh, she
hey, y'all.
like, yeah, baby girl, you gonna done it again.
Welcome back. You're listening to Winning at Life. If you'd like to join the conversation, it's 504-260-0995. If you'd like to ask a question and get a little bit of help, we had a great call earlier this morning from Steve over in Alabama talking about, he referred to IULs, which is basically a life insurance policy, universal life structure, and he was doing some of that to create future tax income. He's talking about his 401k with the traditional and the IRA inside of that and shifting funds over to his individual accounts. He has an individual Roth account that he's contributing to. So really the conversation he was having about shifting money and does it make sense to get more money into tax-free areas for the future. And And actually, that is a great idea. That's a mindset, because one of the things when a family comes in and visits with us, there's a lot of reports that we want to run based on that first visit. I might try to list those for you as an idea here in a few minutes, but one of them specifically that I think is important and will be run every year. And I was speaking to the group the other evening briefly, and one of the things I shared is if you're coming in for that first visit to talk to us, one of the things we're going to prepare for you on that second visit, which is a reason enough to come in and have a conversation, is the tax efficiency report. We're going to take your 1040 and look at it and find out where there's opportunities to do some planning and create possible tax savings in the future, and show you where those are, and even take looks down the road as maybe your income changes, and even look at the impact of tax changes down the road. And that's something I'd say, once again, you should be looking at this every year, because guess what? Things are going to change. And when we look at, here is something that's really interesting, that you've got 22% tax bracket at the range of $81,000 to $172,750. That's the 22% tax bracket for married filing jointly. The next tax bracket's $172,000 to $329,000. You're talking about a window right there. And when we're looking at, say, do conversions of dollars, say converting traditional money to Roth, look at that range that you have that's within 2%. And I'll tell you, that range, that window is $81,000 to $329,000 there. So you've got the opportunity to shift a neighborhood of $250,000 with a 2% range, because you get above that $329,850, you jump up to 32%. Well, that's a different conversation, because that's a good bit more in tax right there. But that window of a 2% range, where most households are falling in the income, is in that 22% range. But to impact the future and create future tax dollars in retirement, which what that means is your assets don't have to work as hard. If you're not having to pay tax on some of that income, you're not having to take out as much, because you're not paying taxes on that money. And that's a reason to run tax efficiency reports. And also you want to see, how is that impacting your Medicare premium in retirement? How is that impacting your Social Security income? Because, Social Security is going to be taxed subject to level of income as well. And where is there opportunities or windows to do even more? And once again, part of that is having ongoing discussions about that. So once again, if you want to join the conversations here, download that Winning at Life app. Get that on your smartphone. You can text, email, call the show through the Winning at Life app. info@gregoryricks.com is the email. And if you want to call the show directly and ask a question, 504-2600-995. We have Lucien from Houma, Louisiana. Welcome to Winning at Life. How can we help you today, Lucien?
I have a question about Social Security increasing every 8 years after your full retirement age. Does it happen on anniversaries, or does it happen monthly?
Or does it? What?
Okay.
What are we talking about increasing after you turn it on? Is that the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Well, I haven't turned it on yet.
Okay.
But I'm intending to retire. I'm going to turn 70 in January.
Okay.
I'm intending to retire in July.
Yeah. So
now,
well, let's kind of dig into this question a little bit here. So in your deferral, each month you have deferred beyond your full retirement age. You are getting credit for each month that you defer. Now, when you turn it on, it's going to be turned on based on what your age was that previous year that you turned it on. You're not going to get that credit to the deferral till the next anniversary or the beginning of the year of Social Security. But even though it won't show up in your check immediately, you're getting those credits, and that'll be updated the beginning of the next calendar year. Now, when you defer to 70 and turn on, they're going to give you your full credits at that turn-on point for deferring to age 70. So you get all the credits. So even if you don't wait the whole year and you say you turn it on right now, you're going to get credits up to that point. You're not penalized because you didn't wait a whole year. So by getting monthly credits, you are going to get all that credit dependent upon when you turn it on. Now, annual increases beyond that, that's subject to the COLA increases, cost of living adjustments that will be factored in. And those are decided essentially, I'll just say each fall before the next year on what is coming on the increases. And those are adjusted on an annual basis based on cost of living. Do you have a follow-up to that?
Excellent.
Did that help you?
No, that's basically, that's what I because if it did it only happened on certain dates, like your anniversary date, then I would have just go ahead and work till January of next year. I know I would get a little bit more, but I don't really, it's not that much. You know what I mean?
Yes, I totally understand that. So, congrats on that deferral. You're essentially maxing out Social Security. How's your health, if I may ask, Lucien?
Pretty fair. It's fair.
Okay. Well, one of the impacts on when people are asking about Social Security and turning it on, I always kind of say there's two things you need to know. When's retirement date? That also kind of gives the age. And then you kind of have to say, well, how's life expectancy looking? And I'm going to just say in general for all of us, it's longer. If you've got health issues, then you kind of understand how that may impact you. But when we, like you in deferral, if you had turned yours on at FRA, or if you had turned it on at 62, or you're turning it on, it looks like at age 70, by age 80, all that's going to have evened out for you. I would say you got to get a little bit past 80 for it to even out to the FRA number. But living, say, to 90 or beyond that, you are getting ahead of any other method of turning on. So you just kind of got to say, well, if I can turn it on at 70, I make it 10 years, I'm winning after that. So you definitely are going to win, Lucien. So
that's my plan, sir.
Okay, awesome. Well, congratulations, and that means you're leaving a pretty big check behind if there is a spouse in the picture as well. So once again, congratulations, and thanks to listening to Winning at Life Radio.
Thank you, sir.
All right, you have a great weekend, and it is a great weekend here. I'm enjoying it. I like my weekends, and but I like to get back Monday to helping people improve their financial decisions. And Social Security is a giant, giant decision. When I spoke of running reports for people when they come in, and one of the things we like to talk to when they're a client and they've not turned on Social Security, that's something that we will relook at every year. I don't think you talk about it back at 60 or 62 or 64 and say, okay, well, we'll just wait to 69 or 70 or 66 and turn it on. This is a discussion every year. And there's things that may change that may alter when to turn that on. And it doesn't mean both of you wait to age 70. It doesn't mean necessarily that either of you wait to age 70. Sometimes it might be turning it on before FRA or one of you. So, it really also comes down to where the rubber meets the road, meaning you may need the income. If you want to join the conversation, 504-260-0995, and we'll get you some help. You're listening to Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks. We'll be right back.
Hey, James Parker here from Winning at Life. Something that's come up on the show over the last 10 years is that if you're not at your old job, maybe your 401k shouldn't be either. But do you really know why we say that? It's a funny thing. We put a few $100 in our 401k every month. It ends up to be thousands of dollars every year, hundreds of thousands of dollars over our career, and you don't really know that much about it. How do you invest it? How do you diversify? What do you buy? What do you avoid? If you've got a financial situation and you're not quite sure what to do, ask Gregory. Ask Gregory is our new podcast with these financial topics broken down into specific little chunks. So if you have a financial situation or you just want to learn more about money, Ask Gregory. Find the Ask Gregory podcast on the Winning at Life app, the iHeartRadio app, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and Spotify.
And I want to thank you for all of your help.
That's exactly what I needed to know.
Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC.
What does your ideal retirement look like? Is it traveling the world, fishing whenever you want, spending time with the grandkids, or maybe you don't know yet? Hi, I'm Gregory Ricks. Let us help you plan the retirement you deserve. Give us a call or go to GregoryRicks.com to schedule a visit. We are Gregory Ricks & Associates, the Total Wealth Authority.
The firm provides insurance services, investment, and advisory services. Offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management, LLC. AE Wealth Management, LLC, and Gregory Ricks & Associates are not affiliated companies.
If you like money, you'll love the Winning at Life app. On the Winning at Life app, you can listen to the show live 6 days a week. And if we're not on at the moment, you can hear a replay of the latest episode of Winning at Life. Whether you're getting a late start on your retirement savings or keeping up with the financial news, Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks is there on demand. Hear the Winning at Life show on the Winning at Life app, your wallet's favorite app.
Cancer Crusaders has been raising funds for cancer research in New Orleans since 1976. Cancer Crusaders, Inc. is a nonprofit, all-volunteer organization with no administrative overhead. Cancer Crusaders has raised over $4 million so far, and all of that money goes to the Louisiana State University Health Sciences Center Foundation and the Tulane Cancer Center in New Orleans, where they are literally working on a cure for cancer. Get involved, donate, volunteer, or attend a fundraiser. CancerCrusadersLA.com.
Fox News, I'm Karen McHugh. More military hardware is on its way from the U.S. to Ukraine.
The president, meanwhile, continues to get updates directly from his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky. They've been on the phone countless times over the past 5 weeks, and the U.S. is now giving that additional $300 million in assistance to Ukraine. Some of the items on the list, a laser-guided rocket system, other types of artillery.
Fox's David Spunt. Florida's lieutenant governor pushing back against Disney's criticism of the parental rights education bill, which opponents have dubbed the Don't Say Gay bill.
They can stand there and they can complain and they can criticize and they can threaten that they're going to work to repeal this legislation, but they certainly have a lot of work to do within their own ranks.
Republican Jeanette Nunez on Fox. Gay rights advocates say the bill marginalizes the LGBT community. America is listening to Fox News.
Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks is a copyright of Down South Strategies for the private use of our audience. Any unauthorized use of this broadcast without express consent is prohibited. For podcasts, show information, and contacts to our sponsors, go to winningatlife.com or download the Winning at Life app. If you have a financial situation and you're not quite sure what to do, you better call Gregory. We are Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks.
Playing nothing slow at the parking lot party. The tailgate buzz just a sipping on suds. Ain't never too early to light one up, fill up because
hey, y'all.
Ain't no party like the pre-party and after the party.
How about a retirement party? It's a fun time. It's part 2 of your life. You're probably going to need the money you've built up for a longer period than you took to accumulate it there. And I still think that's one of the emphasis that people don't think enough about is time for your money. Let's see. I had some numbers here for you. Look at this. Think of this from time for your money. I've got some stats here from BTN Research. Time in versus timing. The split between up and down time periods for the S&P 500 index from 1950 to the end of 2021. It's the last 72 years. So let's talk about if you measure it by days. So if you look at your account every day, which I don't recommend this because I don't like people being unhappy. So 54% of the time looking at it daily and looking to what was the previous day. So your look back is one day. It's up 54% of the time and down 46% of the time. So you're kind of like almost every other day, if it's gone down some, you're kind of unhappy. Now, if we did it a month, meaning every day you look at it, you look at where I am over the previous month, you're up 61% of the time and down 39% of the time. If you're looking at it quarterly, it's even more likely to make you happy because it's up 67% of the time if you look back 90 days. So that means it's down 33% of the time. If you look at it yearly, 74% of the time it's up. If you look at it on a 5-year rolling period, meaning you look at it, but you're looking back, how have I done the past 5 years? You're up 79% of the time. So you're happy majority of the time that you look at it. That's a great number. 10-year periods, listen to this, 10-year periods, you're going to look back, but you're going to look back the past 10 years. You're up 89% of the time and down only 11%. And so far to date, if you do it over a 20-year period, you're up 100% of the time. So you're kind of happy every time you look at it that way. So once again, all your money doesn't have time. But when you speak of time horizon, how long do you have that money you're putting to work? And you kind of say, well, I've got 10-year money here. So you know what? So your likelihood of success over the next 10 years is you're likely to be up 89% of the time. You have a high success ratio. If you kind of say, well, I've got money that, I can put to work. Of your assets, what portion of your assets has time to work? It all doesn't. And it all should not be in the same asset class. But if you're going to put money in the S&P 500, the longer you can leave that money to work increases the possibility of higher return and being up. Because the market's not down all the time or stays down forever. It's the ups and downs as we go. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of help on looking at timeline. How long do you have money to put to work? And that's why I like 4 asset classes. I like me some stocks. We do that through exchange traded funds. I like me some bonds, less of them right now, exchange traded funds because it's more efficient. And I like some quantitative tactical. I want some of my money to follow momentum. And when things get like extremely down, one way maybe to put that, it's just we're really in a down environment. It may even go to cash and then pause to see where momentum is. And I like indexed linked investing. I like me some fixed indexed annuities. Why? I want to get a portion of the upside based on the indices and have no downside exposure. So I've got 4 asset classes that can keep money potentially rotating in favor for me getting growth for the future to that number one thing I need to have retirement, and that is income. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of help on perspective there. If you want to join the conversation like Lewis on the North Shore has, call us at 504-2600-995. Hey, Lewis, how can we help you today here at Winning at Life Radio?
Making a lot of money.
Okay. We will sure give it a shot at that.
Yeah. No, actually, I understand that everybody's individual circumstances would require, I guess, a unique view or a unique strategy. But just from a philosophical standpoint or broad stroke, I just recently retired. Kind of give you the basics. I've got 2 separate 401k accounts from just a couple of previous jobs that I worked, and they've been. I kind of somewhat manage those by choosing the vehicles that they can be in based on what's going on, or move it to a more of a cash type secure position, which I did during COVID. Right at the beginning, I saw what was happening, so I just moved everything out of that and saved myself a good bit. So I have those. I've got a small pension, and I do have Social Security turned on. I know a lot of people feel it shouldn't be done, but anyway, it's neither here nor there. But I do have Social Security. Both my wife and I have that turned on. We're on Medicare. And I have a small annuity and an insurance policy, and I can give you the basics of that insurance, what it's called. But anyway, I have about $100K in cash. So I've got some income from Social Security and the pension. I'm not 72, I'm 67, so I'm not drawing off of the 401ks, those retirement vehicles yet, and wanted to kind of an idea of, and obviously the 2 401ks are qualified, so I'm going to be paying tax on those when the time comes. I have 2 IRAs, and those are also qualified. So I kind of wanted an idea of what do I do with the 100K, and do I try to convert some of all this stuff to Roth? And it's because I've got about 5 years before I have to start taking those distributions. So go.
Gosh, that's a lot to unpack right there. So with that said, I think you should be looking at, are there windows of opportunity to create tax efficiency for the future? You're not having to take RMDs, but we also want to see how are RMDs going to impact you. Is that going to push you up taking more income, which could increase your taxes on something where you don't need to? So you're not being forced to, so you've got a window, I would say, between now and then to 72 also creates a window of opportunity. Then we need to see where is your income needs now versus possibly in the future. These are your go-go years. I'd say most likely your income need is more now. If your income need is later, and that might be more on the back end of life because of health situations and help you're needing, you may need to fund there. So important to look at what are those opportunities. And it sounds like you're not working, right? Because those are 401ks are old jobs there. So then what is the efficiency of that money being left there? Are you missing opportunities because it's sitting at the old job? Now, those might be good, but it's another thing to have a discussion about as well, about why that's money there. And we're going to jump to the break here in a moment because I want to ask you about the annuity and insurance that you brought up, just to kind of see where that's aligning as well. And being that you've turned on Social Security, that's where we are with that. And then how do the other assets correlate in there? And I'll give you some more help when we come back from the break. Hey, everyone, you're listening to Winning at Life. We're going to bring Lewis back after the break to continue that discussion. Brian, you're up next as well. This is Winning at Life Radio with Gregory Ricks. If you want to join the conversation, 504-260-0995. We're here for you. Be right back.
If you've got a financial situation and you're not quite sure what to do, you better call Gregory.
The single biggest financial regret of Americans surveyed by Bankrate was waiting too long to start saving for retirement. Respondents 50 and older expressed this regret at a much higher rate than younger respondents. Morningstar calculated how much you need to sock away monthly to reach the magic number of $1 million saved by 65. Assuming a 7% annual return, you'd need to save $381 a month if you start at age 25 and almost $5,800 a month starting at 55. You see, that just really becomes an obstacle when you delay.
Gregory Ricks and Associates. Find us at GregoryRicks.com or call 504-832-9200. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC.
Oh, Rover, you have fleas again? Prevent fleas and ticks from setting up shop in your backyard. Those bloodsuckers can bite up to 400 times a day and carry nasty diseases like typhus and tapeworms. Give Rover some relief and contact Mosquito Joe. Their mosquito control services also kill and prevent fleas and ticks. Let Mosquito Joe be your first line of defense against those blood-sucking pests. NewOrleans.MosquitoJoe.com. NewOrleans.MosquitoJoe.com.
Ask Gregory is a financial podcast from the guys who bring you Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks.
Could this be your Social Security, your 401k, pension, lump sum, your debt, student debt, credit cards?
You all are so good. I've listened to you for years. Sometimes I'll pull over to the side of the road and just listen.
Find the Ask Gregory podcast on the Winning at Life app, the iHeartRadio app, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC. The Ricks Report with Gregory Ricks.
I kind of like using three asset classes. I like exchange-traded funds, index-linked stocks. We take those ETFs and we'll invest in stocks through the indexes on the ETFs. We'll use bonds also through exchange-traded funds. And then we like to use annuities to take risk off in the third asset class, to take the risk off, but we're still wanting to index link to get the upside of the market without downside exposure. And that blend is subject to your risk. That's kind of how I look at it. And when we look at the numbers and run historicals, that shows the higher probability of success.
Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks. Find us on the Winning at Life app or winningatlife.com. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Too loud on the highway. I wanna pull back in your drive.
Hey, y'all. Winning at Life. Live Financial News Talk Radio. I'm your host, Gregory Ricks. A little bit about me for new people joining the show. I'm CEO, founder of Gregory Ricks and Associates, a total wealth authority and wealth advisor there, along with other wealth advisors we have on the team, support staff, and customer service people. Offices in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Mandeville, Louisiana, Metairie, Louisiana, and Gulfport, Mississippi, and capability of doing Zoom and taking calls across the country to help you make better decisions with your money. So we're going to jump back to Lewis here on the North Shore. He called in to the radio show hotline, 504-260-0995. Lewis, I want to jump back to, tell me about that annuity that you have, and you mentioned some insurance.
Sure. The annuity is a indexed annuity, and I'm trying to.
That's okay, but it's a fixed index.
There's two opportunities. One is on the Barclay, and the other is S&P. So it's kind of split.
Okay, and you mentioned insurance. Is that a life insurance?
It is a life insurance. It's a whole life, and the way it was structured was because at the time I wanted to keep the premiums fairly low, so it was a small amount in whole life, and then with a convertible term that is probably about 10 years away, not even 10. Probably 5 years away, or maybe less, on having that completely converted.
So what are your thoughts on the whole life? I'm going to be kind of quick with you here. So what are your thoughts on that whole life? Is that something you're wanting to keep going, or are you just not sure what to do with?
Well, I mean, it's I've got a pretty good bit of it invested. I mean, I'm almost completely converted, but I don't know. I don't know what the best opportunity is. I mean,
one of the quick things here is you want to see an illustration. Whenever you have life insurance, whether it's a term, a universal life, an indexed universal life, a whole life, I call it an illustration, and that's a forward look to the policy, and you call the customer service department at the insurance company and ask for an illustration to age 100 so you could see how that policy is going to work over time. Like some could be a universal life that maybe is underfunded by premium. Mortality costs going to go up, so it could eat up the cash in sight. You just need to see how that's looking in the present interest rate climate going forward. The fixed indexed annuity, so it depends on how your options are inside of that. My preference is I like participation rate of the S&P 500 because I treat them as a growth tool where I have no downside risk exposure to the market going negative and impacting me. So I like par rates. I like to treat it as growth. I'm not a big fan any longer of income riders, and that's another discussion I can give you later for the audience as well as you, Lewis, and any others that have question about that. But we like that as a no-risk growth tool because that reduces our exposure from direct investing in the stock market. And your 401ks and qualified money, we got to look at efficiency going forward there. And remember, you probably heard me talk about this, but I like 4 asset classes, so I get the right blend of asset classes to keep rotation, increase the opportunity of rotation moving in my favor. And that's like, I like me some stocks, but I want to index it, and I use exchange-traded funds. I like some bonds, less now, in short duration, but through exchange-traded funds. I like quantitative tactical because I want rotation hunting in my favor, and I like me some fixed index, like a piece of that you have. Why? I just said par rate, upside of the indices, and no negative impact on negative years to my money. And you've got a couple other things good going on there. That cash, the question you had, that it's going to be subject to your emergency money. If you're in retirement, I kind of have a baseline of $50K, but that is subject to your expenses and exposure that you may have in the future. So some of that could be put to work, but it doesn't have to go to risk. Also, there are some opportunities where you could take cash money, get upside to the indices, and yet have no risk to that money and it be liquid. So there's some discussions there on opportunity where you're not actually tying it up or exposing it to risk. Lewis, is that good for us today? Because you probably should call my office and continue the discussion.
Sure, I'll probably try to reach out to you and see what we can put together.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for calling in. I appreciate that information. It made for a great show today, sharing that with the listeners. You have a great weekend, Lewis. If you want to join the conversation, 504-260-0995. We have Ryan calling us from Amit. Welcome to Winning at Life. How can we help you today, Ryan?
Yeah, my wife just changed jobs, and she was had a 401k at her previous place of employment, and she's looking at pension plans with her new employment. Might be kind of a simple question, but just trying to figure out maybe what to do. I was considering transferring her 401k into an IRA. Was looking to see if you had any other suggestions, anything with maybe any kind of gold-backed IRA or anything like that. Might recommend. Kind of was interested in that. Just want to see what your thoughts are.
Well, part of that's going to depend on what you're doing as a household overall. Now, sometimes that can be separated out. The husband and wife have different philosophies. Say, for example, Ryan, you might be more about risk, and hypothetically, she might be more about conservative. So it could be guidance could be given that way, or if you're kind of on the same page on risk, it can kind of be blended overall. And I don't know that I would say, oh, let's shift it to a gold IRA. Once again, we have to take an overall look at that and make sure we're investing elsewhere properly, because gold is a different type of risk and how that should be looked at and done. And then also, when you're kind of saying that, why would you want to buy directly into gold? And then that's a different type of IRA. It's a self-directed IRA, and you have to understand the workings or mechanisms of that also. So one of the choices is leave it at the old job, or you could well roll it over to a rollover IRA account, which gives you a lot of options out there. And I think there's pros and cons to both sides there. But also you want to track that money so that those protections that you have over in the 401k continue to that rollover money as well. But once again, it's kind of a discussion where we kind of have to look at a little bit of everything to make those decisions. Does that help you, Ryan?
I think so. Certainly need to get in and maybe get somebody to kind of look at the whole picture and maybe make a little bit more informed decision that way.
Yeah. See, you can see where, and what I explained to the listeners, it's not just about investing, just like talking with Lewis. There's so much to discuss, and it happens to where are you trying to get to? How does the household look at money and such? So, yeah, call the office at 504-832-9200. And listeners, you can call right now and leave a message, and we will have a team member follow back up with you on Monday. Thank you for calling from Amit, Ryan, and talking with us. So we're going to jump to Gladys. We've got about 2.5 minutes before we go to the break at the top of the hour, which will be a 6-minute break going into the third hour of Winning at Life. Gladys from Baton Rouge, how can we help you today?
Thank you. I have some investments, and I'm going to be 76 years old, and I had them high risk. And I bought them so long ago, so I had just plain IRAs. It was too expensive to change into the Roth. When is a good time to move some money from being so high risk now that the stock market is so low? How long should I wait so I don't lose, what I already gained?
Well, the stock market is not at its highs. The S&P 500 was up 3.7% in the month of March, its first up month in this year after negative results in January and February. But I think this is something that also should always be looked at ongoing, and that's kind of like in portfolios that we oversee with clients as wealth managers, as we look at on quarterly making adjustments to our models so that you keep in balance and the 4 asset classes stay in balance as well. So and if you've not done this long time, it's time to have a conversation. And I'm not going to ask your age on the air, but some of that has to do with what your risk is, and your risk probably is lower. And on the notes here, I see that was put in for your call is you're like looking to move conservative. And there's no bad time to move to conservative, but we have to look at where you're going, trying to get to, and make adjustments there. And it is subject to your risk and how you view that as well to get that in line so that we have you comfortable, you feel confident in the path, and you're not investing in a way that's going to interrupt the compounding. So Gladys, call my office. We'll give you a little bit more help direct on that than I can do on the show. Thank you for calling, and hopefully that helps. We're going to jump to a break right here. We're going to be back in 6 minutes. John, hang in there. We're going to have you up next. You're listening to Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks.
From the Gregory Ricks and Associates Wealth Management Studios, WRNO FM, New Orleans, an iHeart radio station.
A surge on top of a surge. I'm Pam Puso, Fox News. That's what many are predicting will happen next month at our southern border.
The public health order that allowed expulsion of migrants at the border because of COVID will be ending on May 23rd. DHS is preparing for as many as 18,000 migrants attempting to cross into the U.S. per day, and that is more than double the current average of 7,000 per day. So the CDC is giving DHS 7 more weeks before Title 42 ends to scale up its preparedness, including a program to vaccinate up to 6,000 migrants a day at 27 locations across the southwest border.
Fox's Jackie Heinrich. Many Democrats, specifically progressives, have been calling for the end of Title 42 for months. No escape from a coastal city in Ukraine as the Russian bombardment continues.
Russia's really bearing down on the eastern city of Mariupol right now, preventing humanitarian aid from getting in and preventing civilians from getting out. Only 6,000 of the roughly 100,000 people who are still trapped in that city managed to make it out after Russian forces blocked many of the buses there. The Red Cross even halting its attempt to make evacuations, saying that conditions made it impossible to proceed.
Fox's Alex Hogan in the western Ukrainian city of Lviv. Turkey has offered to evacuate residents of Mariupol by ship. A third arrest has been made in Texas in connection with the death of an off-duty police officer. A 17-year-old boy was picked up on a capital murder warrant following the shooting death of a Harris County sheriff's deputy. The deputy was killed Thursday night after shopping for groceries with his wife. The officer was shot after confronting 3 people who were allegedly trying to steal the catalytic converter from his vehicle. America's listening to Fox News.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network. Stay on top of the latest news and information from Fox News. Listen and download the Fox News Hourly Update on your time. The trending stories you need anytime you want it. Listen and download now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. Get all of your favorite Fox News podcasts commercial-free on Apple Podcasts with Fox News Podcasts Plus. From Dana Perino, Kennedy, Ben Domenech, The Duffys, and many more. Subscribe now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
What are the most important issues facing Americans today? Every Tuesday, join me, Brett Baer, Chief Political Anchor and Executive Editor of Special Report, and my rotating all-star panel of experts as we discuss the policies, practices, and possible solutions to the biggest and most important issues. You can hear new episodes every Tuesday. Subscribe now at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts.
The official commissioning of a nuclear-powered submarine has taken place in Wilmington, Delaware.
This latest ship to carry the USS Delaware is part of a long tradition of serving our nation proudly and strengthening our nation's security, the security of the United States of America, not just us, but our allies and partners around the world as well.
President Biden and the First Lady were there. Another chapter in an ongoing legal saga surrounding the former governor of New York.
Andrew Cuomo is suing New York State's Ethics Commission in a running dispute over his earnings from a book about his efforts during the COVID-19 pandemic. He's accusing the Joint Commission on Public Ethics of violating his constitutional rights. The commission granted approval for Cuomo's book deal back in July of 2020 after being told that Cuomo would not use state personnel or resources. A state assembly investigation later found that was not the case, and the Joint Commission ordered Cuomo to turn over the proceeds. Andrew Cuomo's camp saying any state employees involved used personal time. A commission spokesperson has declined to comment. Paul Stevens, Fox News.
When the chips are down, Americans step up. That's what a group of farmers did.
The state of Maine is renowned for many things, including its potatoes. They had a bumper crop this past season, which was good news for local farmers, and as it turns out, it's also good news for those potato growers out west. They did not have a very good growing season thanks to high heat and dry weather, so Maine farmers banded together and shipped by rail more than 21 million pounds of spuds, more than 2,500 miles for processing into French fries and other products to be exported from Washington. And those taters bound for Idaho, meanwhile, were seed potatoes, which will be used in planting this spring.
Fox's Karen McHugh. I'm Pam Puso, Fox News.
You all are so good. I've listened to you for years.
Ask Gregory is a financial podcast from the guys who bring you Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks.
I am near retirement, and I wish I would have been listening to y'all for the last couple of years.
Learn the ins, outs, do's, don'ts, rules, and tools of the financial world.
I have a broker who has no idea what you and I just talked about.
From your 401k to your IRA to your pension to your Social Security to your Medicare.
Hi, Greg. Appreciate your service to the community.
From your ETFs to your precious metals.
The program helps to ground me with some personal, real life there.
Find the Ask Gregory podcast on the Winning at Life app, the iHeartRadio app, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and wherever else you can find podcasts, probably.
That's exactly what I needed to know. Hey, I love your show.
Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC. The firm is not affiliated with the U.S. government or any governmental agency.
Welcome to Winning at Life. Live financial news talk radio. I'm your host, Gregory Ricks. Yeah, I'm CEO, founder of Gregory Ricks and Associates, the Total Wealth Authority, wealth manager, wealth advisor would be the proper, not wealth manager, wealth advisor as well. Got a great team of wealth advisors along with me, support staff and customer service people in my day job over at Gregory Ricks and Associates. Do this weekend show. I've been doing that for the newbies here for close to 12 years now. June will be 12 years. Conceptually, we were having discussions 12 years ago at this time about doing a show. And it was something I had an interest in because it was another way to get out information that there are things that can help you do better with your money, concept-wise, principle-wise, strategy-wise, and tools out there. So and the magic of the show, we're just going to get right into it right now because the magic of the past 12 years is the callers asking questions. If you want to join the conversation, become a part of that. I'm telling you, people, it's going to benefit a lot of people, your situation. We're going to be careful with you. We're not going to probe too much and make you vulnerable. And just like John and Harvey, that's how I introduce you. That's a location where he's calling from and his first name. I don't even see his full name on the board. He may have given that, but John from Harvey, he called 504-2600-995 to join the conversation. John, how can we help you today?
Hey, good morning, or I guess it's afternoon now. But anyway.
Yeah, let me just interrupt you right there, because when I was about to come on air, because this is a 3-hour show. We've already been on for 2 hours, and I was starting to do the introduction. I almost caught myself saying good morning or good afternoon. I just said, welcome to the show. Go ahead, John.
Well, anyway, I inherited an IRA from my father last year, and I was wondering what percent do I have to take out each year? I know I have to dispose of it in 10 years. And then my other question is, I have actually bought some stocks, and I've now lost about maybe 5% of its original value. How does that affect me?
Oh, wow. 2 important questions there. RMD tables. First off, let me see. Let's go back. What is your age, John?
56.
56. And you inherited the IRA last year?
Yes.
Okay, so, and it was from your dad, so you're a non-spouse Benny in that case. So in that case, being he died last year, is that correct as well?
Yes.
Okay. So under the RMD rules, based upon the changes in the tax code, you actually don't have an RMD. First off, let me go back to another question. What was your dad's age at death?
82.
82. So he was taking RMDs. So that RMD has to be solved for last year that he was supposed to take. Non-spouse beneficiaries actually have 10 years to liquidate that account is kind of where you're at on that. You have your RMD in year 10 of having inherited that account is going to be 100%. So because depending on the size of the account, how that may impact your tax brackets, you're almost needing to create a plan of how do you distribute it over the next 10 years. You know, let's just say hypothetically, that's a $200,000 account and you've got, say, $50,000-$60,000 a year in income. You're jumping up like in 24% tax bracket year 10, or maybe higher because taxes are going up. You could be in a higher tax bracket at that time of having to empty out the account. So it's not really about what's your RMD. It's a plan for efficiently distributing those assets out of that account over the next 10 years. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it was $100,000, and so I actually took out $10,000 last year for the taxes. I had no idea how much I needed to take out, but I figured $10,000 would be safe. Just to make sure that I was not getting in any trouble. So I took out $10,000, but I don't know, is it a percentage I have to take out each year, or is it like a set $10,000? I've already lost money in the account, so I can't see that I have to pay back all the money that I've actually lost now.
Yeah, now, for RMD tables, if they apply, it's actually a divisor. Like if you were you reach 72 and you have to take distributions, that table actually is a divisor. It's not a percentage that you have to utilize when taking RMDs. So inherited accounts that were prior to the Secure Act and under that law change, under the Secure Act, if before then, that's a divisor on inherited accounts also. But after, there may not be a required distribution in your situation on that inherited account. But at the core, you have to have it all withdrawn within 10 years of inheriting that account. What we would want to go in and look at your situation, if there's any impact that your dad was of RMD age, taking distributions to make sure there's a clarification there, because what we don't want is any errors on that, because the penalty is 50% of what you should have taken but didn't take. So you want to make sure that's correct. But general understanding, I'll repeat again, is you have to have it all out in 10 years. Taking out 10,000, honestly, probably is a good plan. If it's got 100,000, it's still going to grow some, but you're taking it out every year and take the balance out. You're not going to leap tax brackets likely there, but you probably would if you just left all that money and grow. That's why I'll just say real quick here, a Roth is a great idea to leave behind, because they could take a Roth, let it leave that money in that Roth for 10 years as a non-spouse Benny and leave it in 10 years, 100,000 at 7.2% goes to 200,000, and there's no taxes, and it keeps growing tax-free and coming out to that person that inherited that account. Now, your other question was about 5% down on a couple of stocks. Is that right,
Yeah.
John? Okay. I'm going to ask you if you'll hold we got a 2-minute break here, 3-minute break. 3-minute break. I'd like to talk to you about that when we come back. If you'd like to join the conversation like John, it's 504-260-0995. You're listening to Winning at Life. Do you like golf? Would you like to help cure cancer? Well, put a reminder in your phone for the 15th annual Mark Mitchell Cancer Crusaders Golf Tournament. It's coming up at Bayou Oaks at City Park South Course, noon on Monday, April 25th. All the proceeds go to LSU Stanley S. Scott Cancer Center and Tulane Cancer Center for Cancer Research. Go to cclagolf.com, cclagolf.com.
Wow. How great would it be to get a rate quote on a home loan without giving some dude or dudette your whole life story, wasting hours finding loan documents just to get a hard sell on why you need to use them? At SnapSendAndSave.com, there's absolutely no credit pull or no cost to you. I'll give you your options on rates, terms, and costs. So visit SnapSendAndSave.com. Follow the instructions, and you can thank me later when we chat.
If you like money, you'll love the Winning at Life app. On the Winning at Life app, you can hear the Ask Gregory podcast, where you'll find episodes based on a financial topic. So if you're looking for help on a specific situation, there's a good chance you'll find it on the Ask Gregory podcast, including episodes on 401ks, taxes, stocks, Social Security, gold, and whether or not you should buy an RV. Hear the Ask Gregory podcast on the Winning at Life app, your wallet's favorite app.
Less than half of Americans have drawn up a will. If you don't have one, you know you need to get one. But what if you do have a will? Is it up to date? Has anyone in your family been married, divorced, or passed away? Have any new family members been born or adopted? Don't leave your loved ones in a bind. Call me and we'll make you a plan or update your existing plan. Hi, I'm Wes Blanchard, an estate planning attorney in Metairie. What's your plan? Find me at wjblanchardlaw.com.
The Ricks Report with Gregory Ricks.
What we found through history, looking at the past 90 years, most fund managers don't outperform or perform as well as the indexes. Using indexing, historicals teach us skew a higher return. And yes, there's bad stocks in the S&P 500 as it looks right now, and yet the index is up. I like to use indexed ETFs because those are much lower expense ratios. We try our best in managing our portfolios to avoid trading costs, and we know, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've studied trading strategies. You're not going to outsmart the indexes. You may get lucky, you may get unlucky.
Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks. Find us on the Winning at Life app or winningatlife.com. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Yeah, the boys round here drinking that ice cold beer.
Winning at Life, Financial News Talk Radio. I'm your host, Gregory Ricks, wealth advisor over at Gregory Ricks and Associates, the Total Wealth Authority. I have other wealth advisors on our team, great support staff and service people to help. That's kind of my day job. On Saturdays, this is hour 3 of the live radio show I've been doing for almost 12 years. And gosh, what a great audience that we have, and help people across the country with information that helps them make better financial decisions. If you want to join the conversation, 504-260-0995. We're over on Facebook Live. You can watch the show right now. We're streaming YouTube as well. So pop us up on your big screen if you're listening to it at home. If you're driving, just listen. Don't watch the show. And the Winning at Life app, you can text, email, call the show. The website, GregoryRicks.com, will give you all kind of information and ability and how to reach out to us to start a conversation to get you some help. When we went to break, we were speaking with John. He's calling us from Harvey, Louisiana, about an inherited IRA account. And I'm going to give you a little, for the listeners, he's inherited an account. He's not of RMD age. It was from his dad that I believe passed at about age 80 or so. And John is not of RMD age, but he inherited an IRA where the owner was taking RMDs, and he's not the spouse of the owner. It was his dad, so he's a non-spouse Benny is how we define it. And Benny, that acronym, that's beneficiary. Now, if the original IRA owner died after January 1 of 2020, the Secure Act requires that beneficiaries to withdraw all assets from an inherited IRA or 401k by December 31st of the 10th year following the IRA owner's death. There's exceptions to the 10-year rule that include payments made to an eligible designated beneficiary, which would be a surviving spouse, a minor child of the account owner, or disabled or chronically ill beneficiary, and a beneficiary who is not more than 10 years younger than the original IRA owner or 401k. These bennies can stretch the payments over their life expectancy. Whew, that's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot to unpack there. And that's also people, talk to us about, we're just not investment managers. There's just so much to cover just on this topic, John. Hey, and there was another question you had. Did that description help you a little bit more that I gave then, John?
Well, actually, it kind of got me a little bit more confused because I'm 100% disabled through the military, but I'm not disabled through Social Security. I don't know. Does that make any difference?
Well, Social Security and the IRS kind of define disability a little bit differently, and it's depending on where you're needing to use that. And sometimes we have that on the 10-year, the 10% penalty for early withdrawals. So that's and Social Security is a different definition of how they define those benefits. So that's something we would look more into there. And then once again, that's your situation there where we go back to a surviving spouse or minor child of the account owner, a disabled or chronically ill beneficiary, and then the other part was the beneficiary not more than 10 years younger than the original owner. And I'd say I'm not going to get to that answer here on the radio show, but that's where you should talk to myself or one of the advisors at the firm, and we will drill down into this. And we have resources to go and get more verification, kind of say that I can take a stronger position because I'll have more information. We can have a discussion and get to a specific situation so that you don't have problems later, because what you don't want is a letter from the IRS asking why you didn't take that. So you might be in a situation where because of your disability could have the stretch option, which would then mean you are taking yearly RMDs from that account. So that is something to think about. So with that said, how about the other part? You had asked me something about some stocks going down in value and what to do.
I had stocks in that IRA that actually has dropped, so the value of the IRA is not the same as it was originally. So should I keep going with the 10,000 or should I go with whatever the value of the IRA is now?
Well, and there's a little bit of work to do on the other side of this to see where you fit into this category as a beneficiary, and do you have an exemption from or exception to the 10-year rule? The bigger question I have is how is that account invested? because you don't have, you've inherited the IRA, but you don't have to keep that investment style or management style on that money. And it could be rebalanced in a way to fit your needs or longer term viability. See, I just don't know how it's invested and if that's viable. I would go along more where I'm going to land is the invest 50-50 philosophy that we have of having multiple asset classes that gives you our objective is a higher probability of success over time. If you've just got a few stocks, my gosh, that's kind of pretty high on the risk scale from that standpoint. So we would want to look at how is that suitable for you and how does that tie into the time period that you're wanting to take the distributions. It's not a simple answer, but it could. And that's last thing really, John, I'd hate for that thing to keep going down. You know, it might be a different way to look at it subject to how it's invested. Does that help?
Well, it's doing better. It has come up quite a bit since it hit its low point. I do have one other quick question. I don't know if you have time for it. My wife not retired. She moved from one business to another business. She has a retirement in her previous business, and her friends are telling her just to transfer it into the place where she's working now. Is that a good idea, or what should we do with it?
Yeah, simply put, you've got three choices. You can leave it at the old job unless that company is closing the plan and such. You have two other options. One, you could do a rollover IRA, set up a rollover IRA account and move it over to that, and that gives you a lot of investment choices and styles, and on the risk spectrum as well, to very conservative to risky. I just don't like risky conversations there. And the third one that you mentioned, she could move it over to the new company if she likes how that plan works. So that could well be an option if you like that, or you could segregate that money in a rollover account and do some other investing opportunities there with that money. So she does have a few choices. All of them could be good, and just depending on how those are managed might be the part of the decision on where you move it to.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, thank you very much, and maybe y'all can give me a call and we can talk about this and try to figure it out.
Okay. Awesome, John. Appreciate you calling in and bringing these questions to the show. It was great for the audience. You have a great weekend, and if anybody like John, the objective is if you are needing some help, you can call my office and we'll go much further into that conversation there and drill down, because it's kind of difficult to have that conversation on the radio and really drill down on what's going on and the specifics. I definitely would like to know more about hers, because when you're looking at this, we got to say, well, what investments do you as a household have? You know, well, how much is in that 401k that she has? What does that plan that looks like? What are your objectives and goals? Can it be met there at the old plan, the new plan, or is there opportunities that might be better fitting for you to do a rollover account? Then how does that correlate to what he's doing? Then his an inherited account. Is he wanting to do something specific with that money, or does it fit into the overall plan? And the shifting of that, not only from a risk standpoint that he brought up, but the other part is a tax efficiency standpoint, to where we're not having to pay extra taxes if we don't have to on that money shifting over. And then does his health situation impact the stretch opportunity there that he could have longer than the 10-year rule? See, there's so many questions there, and only a small part of it is the investing part, which I think is the easier apart from that based on how we manage money. And I think if you're working with somebody, they should not say, oh my gosh, investing is so hard. There's so much to it. Who you're working with should have confidence in their style of management and that it's efficient. And I would look at, if you're kind of defining on a choice of who to work with and how, is what is their process. That should increase your confidence in going forward, that they have a process and an understanding of how this goes forward, knowing that you have consistency. It's not all done on a whim or by the seat of their pants. Okay, you've already heard some of the magic. This show's about the callers and helping you. 504-2600-995. Go ahead, dial us up. I have nobody on the board. First caller, you're up next. When we come back from the break, you're listening to Winning at Life.
Hey, James Parker here from Winning at Life. Something that's come up on the show over the last 10 years is that if you're not at your old job, maybe your 401k shouldn't be either. But do you really know why we say that? It's a funny thing. We put a few $100 in our 401k every month. It ends up to be thousands of dollars every year, hundreds of thousands of dollars over our career, and you don't really know that much about it. How do you invest it? How do you diversify? What do you buy? What do you avoid? If you've got a financial situation and you're not quite sure what to do, ask Gregory. Ask Gregory is our new podcast with these financial topics broken down into specific little chunks. So if you have a financial situation or you just want to learn more about money, Ask Gregory. Find the Ask Gregory podcast on the Winning at Life app, the iHeartRadio app, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify.
And I want to thank you for all of your help.
That's exactly what I needed to know.
Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC.
If you're unprepared for current market volatility and concerned about how it could impact you, take action now. I'm Gregory Ricks. Let us help you devise a strategy to navigate this market. Make sure you're still on track to reach your financial goals. Schedule a visit at GregoryRicks.com. We are Gregory Ricks & Associates, the Total Wealth Authority.
The firm provides insurance services, investment, and advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management, LLC. AE Wealth Management, LLC, and Gregory Ricks & Associates are not affiliated companies.
If you like money, you'll love the Winning at Life app. On the Winning at Life app, you can listen to the show live 6 days a week. And if we're not on at the moment, you can hear a replay of the latest episode of Winning at Life. Whether you're getting a late start on your retirement savings or keeping up with the financial news, Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks is there on demand. Hear the Winning at Life show on the Winning at Life app, your wallet's favorite app.
We are living in historic times, extraordinary times. A lot of people need help right now, and I want you to remember your local food bank. Now here in New Orleans, it's Second Harvest Food Bank. Over in Mobile, they've got Feeding the Gulf. But you can find your local food bank, feedingamerica.org. Food donations, monetary donations, or I know you've got some free time. Find your local food bank. Support your local food bank, especially in times like this. Do some good. feedingamerica.org.
Fox News, I'm Jared McHugh. Evacuation from encircled cities like Mariupol in Ukraine is proving to be nearly impossible.
Their Russian forces have largely surrounded the city by land and sea, preventing humanitarian imports and evacuations this week. Only about 6,000 of the roughly 100,000 people made it out.
Fox's Alex Hogan. Poland's ambassador to the U.S. tells Fox what has to happen in Ukraine before any sanctions imposed on Russia are lifted.
Russia has to withdraw all its troops from Ukraine proper and from all those territories which were annexed and occupied. In 2014, it has to pay war reparations to Ukraine, and of course, all those Russian war criminals who have committed and are still committing unspeakable atrocities on Ukrainian soil should be justly tried and sentenced.
Marek Magierowski on Cavuto Live. America is listening to Fox News.
Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks is a copyright of Down South Strategies for the private use of our audience. Any unauthorized use of this broadcast without express consent is prohibited. For podcasts, show information, and contacts to our sponsors, go to winningatlife.com or download the Winning at Life app. If you have a financial situation and you're not quite sure what to do, you better call Gregory. We are Winning at Life with Gregory Riggs.
'Cause you make me wanna pull this truck to the side of the road, slide on over and hold you close and tell you everything I'm thinking.
Hey, y'all. This is Winning at Life Radio. Yeah, it's live financial news talk radio. Back 12 years ago when we were looking at doing this show for you and came up with a title, is kind of like, yeah, well, it's kind of how we keep score. Are we winning in the money game? You know, how much have you saved? How much are you making? You look at, you know, goals through life is to make more income. And, you know, are we winning from that standpoint? How's that going? The other is keeping score of winning is how much are you saving? And that can be your savings account at the bank, that pouch you have kind of in the wall there you sticking money into. Be careful with that, by the way, though. But that comes up all the time. Somebody recently told me, says, yeah, Grandpa died and, you know, he was a saver, but not at the bank or investments. He's like, he just would hide money places. So we're kind of, I said, well, look for those bulges in the sheetrock or something there, or loose wood. And it might be money behind it there. And you hear these stories once in a while, found money out there. So here's, you know, and a few weeks back, I don't know, this Ukraine war is probably, 5-6 weeks in, horrible thing going on over there. You know, I kind of thought we lived in a better world globally. No, I'm not naive to what's going on, but it's just like crazy. It's like, this shouldn't be happening. And I know you all feel that way. So, but you know, the worries was, a few weeks back, we were having conversation. What's going on in the war? What should I do with my money? And worrying more. And honestly, we've got tables that we show people, and I can't quite show you on the air, but you know, we got people over at YouTube and Facebook Live watching, but I can't put up a chart at this time. But that's one of the things, one of the wealth advisors on our team, Nicholas Rohde, it had used this table some, and it kind of shows the history of the market and noted by when wars have happened, and kind of showing that this isn't going to be a big or long-term impact. And based on last Friday, March 18th, and you know, we've had a decent market week this week as well. Based on last Friday, the S&P 500 was up 4.2% total return since Russia invaded Ukraine. You know, market, it caused the market to go down, but when you're looking as of last week, is up 4.2% since the war started. So yeah, things are looking better, but we got other problem. Taxes going up in a few years. We have inflation, record inflation. We have record housing prices as well the past few years. You know, the average U.S. single-family home has appreciated at least 10% in just 4 of the last 30 years. Want to guess what years those were? 2004, 2005, 2020, and yes, 2021. The 2 previous years are 2 of the 4 that were real estate's appreciated more than 10%. So we're having some inflation, and inflation doesn't just go on forever and ever. If we kind of take our highest 16 years over the past 100 of inflation, the market's been up 8 years, down 8 years. And the average, I believe, is a little bit more than 3% average return over that when you average out those 8 years. So once again, inflation is not something that crushes the market, but actually inflation, what it does is hurt your savings accounts in this low environment. Hey, the boards are open. If you've got a financial situation, not sure what to do, you can join the conversation. 504-2600-995. So from market timing standpoint, and I use this a lot when we're kind of looking at investing and saving, and what I had spoke to the previous caller about on the asset classes when he's kind of looking at, well, what I do about the investments, like in that inherited IRA account, 100,000, and it's kind of gone down a little bit because of the stocks. So kind of two parts. I want to talk to you about time for the money to work, and then having proper diversification. And it's not just diversify the money, but diversify, the S&P 500 using an index, for example, give, roughly 500 stocks are in that index. If you use a Dow index, you got about 30 there. That's what we talk about, diversification within an asset class there. But diversifying in asset classes means having more than one asset class. And I'm going to come back to that here in a moment. But I want to share with you timing, time in versus timing. So the split between up and down time periods for the S&P 500, and I've got this from BTN Research, the S&P 500 index from 1950 through the end of 2021. So that's the last 72 years. So if you were measuring it, you're one of those that look at the market every day. So you're measuring it a day at a time. That history tells us it's up 54% of the time when you're looking at it daily. If you're looking at it monthly, which is a better way to go, you're going to be up more often when you do look at how you did the past month. You're up 61% of the time. If you do it yearly, you're up, meaning you look at it and you look at how have I done the past year, you're up 74% of the time. And 5-year rolling time periods, you're up 79% of the time. 10-year, up 89% of the time. 20-year, presently you're up 100% of the time. So when we speak about asset classes, so understanding that that money that is in something like the stock market that moves up and down, it needs some time. Does all your money should be invested in the stock market? I tell you what, you need to be young or starting out, and you've got to be okay with it moving down, that you could look at it 1 month or 1 quarter or 1 year and gosh, it's down over what I started. But if you could say, well, I'm going to ride this for 20 years. But at some point, I think you have to diversify asset classes. So as you get through further in life, you need more asset classes. I think you need some money in stocks. And history tells us using the indices skews a higher return. I like some bonds. Why? Because when stocks are going down, bonds don't react the same as stocks. But we have an interest rate environment, so think of the seesaw. If interest rates are moving up, the other side, the value's moving down. So, shorter duration minimizes that. But I want some offset to the stock market. I also want quantitative tactical, which means I want some money that I'm investing for the future to follow where momentum is. And if it's one of these things where the market goes down a lot, like during the lockdowns or COVID or the Great Recession, that money's going to hunt for momentum or even shift to cash and then wait to find where momentum is going. And then I want some no-risk money, but I still want to get growth on it, and that's fixed indexed annuities. I like par rate, and I hear some of you right there. Okay, be careful. Keep your car on the road. Yeah, I like some fixed indexed annuities, but I hear you. You don't like annuities. Well, I'll tell you, I don't like most of them, but what I want is growth. I want a portion of the growth with no downside exposure. And when you're looking at in the mix of one of your asset classes, that's a great offset to the risk. You know, it's just like stocks. There's like over 4,600 stocks, and 97% of market cap is made up by less than 1,000 stocks. So in essence, I dislike a lot of stocks too, but we want to have our money spread among diversified asset classes. Hey, Jerry, we're going to take your call when we come back from the break. You're next up on Winning at Life. This is Winning at Life.
If you've got a financial situation and you're not quite sure what to do, better call Gregory.
One of the things I'm going to find out is, what do you think you're going to need a month to continue your lifestyle? And if they're not sure, I say, well, what are you spending now? Because I don't think it's going to be a whole lot different. One thing I'll suggest is you need to do a little bit of homework. You need to go look at your outflow from your checking account the past 6 months. Now, sometimes people will pay their bills on a quarterly basis, or, well, I pay my insurance once a year on the house. Well, go back a year and average it out to see what you're needing to pay. And then you have a handle, because now that tells me the net number. So now we have to go back, look at your overall income need. Where does that fit in tax brackets, and get to a gross number?
Call Gregory Ricks and Associates, 504-832-9200 or GregoryRicks.com. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC.
Mom, it stinks.
Hush, I'm almost done. All right, now you're safe from bugs in the backyard. Don't let mosquitoes ruin your outdoor fun. Call Mosquito Joe today. When you call, they come out and they do the spraying. Mosquito Joe's time-release capsule lasts for about a month. No more sticky bug sprays. Take back your backyard. NewOrleans.MosquitoJoe.com. NewOrleans.MosquitoJoe.com.
Ask Gregory is a financial podcast from the guys who bring you Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks.
I am near retirement, and I wish I would have been listening to y'all for the last couple of years.
Learn the ins, outs, do's, don'ts, rules, and tools of the financial world.
Hey, I love your show.
Find the Ask Gregory podcast on the Winning at Life app, the iHeartRadio app, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify.
That's exactly what I needed to know.
Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC. The Ricks Report with Gregory Ricks.
So part of our invest 50-50 money management philosophy is to use stock ETFs. We like the indices. We're not going to beat them, so let's join them. Somebody will say, well, what's your track record? Well, what's the track record of the S&P 500? Because that's what we're using, the Dow, the NASDAQ, and some of the sub-indices there. Well, what are you doing on bonds? Well, we like those on the ETFs, because I'm not in the buying houses and selling houses business. You know what the pain it is to sell a house? Well, that's kind of like selling a bond. You got to list it and wait for bids. I'd rather do it inside of an ETF that has low expense ratio and let the institutional guys help with that selection.
Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks. Find us on the Winning at Life app or winningatlife.com. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Hey, y'all. This is Winning at Life. Live Financial News Talk Radio. If you want to join the conversation, 504-260-0995. Angie, that helps work my board here in studio, and she is a fantastic help. And she was sharing with me that you had found money recently.
I did.
Yeah, you worked at another job some years back, and you found out you had a 401k there.
Over 20 years ago.
Yeah, so she works for Gregory Ricks and Associates, a Total Wealth Authority. She's on the support team, there, and she was saying, I checked with Sophie, and I found out I can move that money from the old job to the new 401k there. So it kind of gives you a jump start out there. I always like it when people have found money. It's kind of like going through stuff you stash away. And one of our kids told us about this a while back, that they were going through organizing their closet and stuff, and they found a few $100s in cash. Nice. And also probably that much value in gift cards. That's like money too, just sitting out there. So I love it when I hear stories of found money. If you want to join the conversation, we're here at 504-260-0995. Jerry from Kenner, Louisiana. Thanks for calling into the show. How can we help you?
Thank you, Gregory, for taking my call. I'm a senior citizen and 81 years old, and regret that I have little to show for it. But I've got about $10,000 to invest in, and I'm wondering if it's too late to do anything with it. I'm in good health. I work out regularly. I eat. No problem with my health whatsoever. But I just hate keeping what little I have in a savings account if it's not doing anything.
Well,
and I thought I'd give you a call.
Is that all the savings you have, or is there another emergency savings?
I've got about $10,000 invest, and I've got about $6,000 for emergency.
$6,000 for emergency.
Mm-hmm.
What are your sources of income? I assume Social Security is one of them.
Social Security. I have a light pension from the Musicians Union, and I have a little bit coming from the VA from ear damage that I suffered.
Okay.
For a total of about Social Security and the others, about $1,800 a month.
Okay. And so I'm assuming from that your monthly expenses are less.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so none of those sources of income's going to end as long as you live, is what it sounds like.
No.
As well. So
I'm actively still working.
We have consistency there. And you're working as well?
Yes.
Okay. Well, congrats on that. That's an abundant
Everybody
life.
keeps telling me.
Well, I'm glad, and it's obviously something whatever you're doing, you enjoy doing, and I bet, does it have to do with music?
No, it's real estate.
Okay, well, that works as well. Okay, so one thing about the emergency savings, you're 81, so then we have to kind of two questions. You've not actually retired, but you've got retirement income. So it's kind of like you're semi-retired, I would probably define it as. Would that be accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So at some point that might end. So how if that part-time employment stops, how would that impact your income?
Well, I'm my partner and I we're living together, and she has about $3,000 a month Social Security. She's retired, and we would live together on that.
Is she older? Is she older or younger than you? Okay.
She's younger than me. She's 75.
And it sounds like health is pretty good for both of you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's also the standpoint when we look at, kind of, I always say there's two numbers I need is to kind of get the conversation going. One is, when is your retirement date? Because that determines your age, and you're into that, but with a part-time gig, so to speak. Speaking, the young people's terms, it's, you and I call it a part-time job, and the younger folks say, oh, it's a side gig that I have going on there. So you still have the side gig going, and the other part is, what is your life expectancy? I would say, and I'm going to answer that for you, and you know your health better, but I don't want to get into that on the air. But I would have to say, you know what? He's living to 100. He's going to be around another 19, 20 years is kind of how we look at that. So we know, and, when we kind of talk about retirement world overall, we divide it in three parts. You got your go-go years, your slow-go years, and your no-go years. Sounds like you're still in your go-go years.
I'm still going, driving and everything here.
Wow.
Really.
Congrats.
Well, not everything, but...
So the other part of that, then I'll take and ask another question is, what's the best of the rest? So if I kind of define that going go, slow go, no-go years, you've got 20 more years. So if I divide that roughly into three parts, we're talking 6, 7, 8 years of go portion of that. You're going to be more active into this next few years versus that. So I have to look at, and then time horizons, if we're investing, you've got a small amount to invest. But maybe we ought to be looking at how do we get more yield. That's not a lot of money. So like if 1,000, 2,000 of it went away, gosh, that would trouble me because you may need it 6, 7, 8 years from now, a little bit more. But you might not need it until the back third. And where the back third is when you're needing help. Your partner might need to spend more money to help you on the back end of life or vice versa there. So this isn't about what can I make on it, because we're having some volatile times right now. It's just maybe how can we get more yield out of that? And if there was some investing, it would just be a smaller portion of that. I would not put that whole 12,000 to some risk. I would try to create some balance, but it's more about we'll just simplify. How can we get more yield, but keep you access to that so that we can keep building on that for as you continue through your go-go years to have more on the back end when you probably indeed fully retire and might need some access to some of that money. Does that help you, Jerry?
Yeah. Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate your call, and I think that was a helpful question to the audience. And once again, I congratulate you of having successful semi-retirement and living a full life and enjoying it. Thank you, Jerry. You have a great weekend, and if we can help you, reach out to my office, and let's have a conversation. Thank you, Jerry. Take care. So that number at the office is 504-832-9200. This is an example of, when you talk with my team and our team at Gregory Ricks and Associates, which is made up of wealth advisors, support team, and customer service. These are wide-ranging conversations that just doesn't trail down to what do I do to invest? How do I invest? We got to help you win in all aspects of it. Call the office, 504-832-9200. Go to GregoryRicks.com. Come see us next Saturday here, 10 a.m. to 1, Winning at Life Radio.
Firm offers insurance services. Gregory Ricks & Associates is an independent financial services firm that utilizes a variety of investment and insurance products. Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management, LLC. AE Wealth Management and Gregory Ricks & Associates are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims paying abilities of the issuing carrier.
This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for a financial decision, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. Gregory Ricks and Associates is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein, provided by third parties, have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Gregory Ricks and Associates. Please remember that converting an employer plan account to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. Increased taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences, including, but not limited to, a need for additional tax withholding or estimated tax payments, the loss of certain tax deductions and credits, and higher taxes on Social Security benefits and higher Medicare premiums. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA. Neither AE Wealth Management nor advisors providing investment advisory services through AE Wealth Management recommend or facilitate the buying or selling of cryptocurrencies. Third parties and guests of the show are not affiliated with, nor do their opinions reflect those of Gregory Ricks and Associates or AE Wealth Management. AE Wealth Management provides services without regard to political affiliation, and the views of individual advisors are not necessarily the views of AE Wealth Management. We are Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks.
WRNO FM, New Orleans, an iHeart radio station. Available everywhere on our free iHeart radio app. #1 for music, radio, and podcasts.